Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. And alhamdulillah. Wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulihi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een. Wa man tabi'ahum bi ihsani ila yawmiddin wa ba'd. We'd like to welcome you all to tonight's broadcast of the Black Imams Roundtable. I'm your host with the most from coast to coast. You know, the Ashuri B-Boy, a.k.a. Imam Faheem, a.k.a. the Imam of the Boom Bap. Alhamdulillah, I have next to me, right by my side, so I know my back is covered. I have Imam Naeem Abdullah of Masjid of Pittsburgh, and joining us shortly, he went to, go powder his nose, hopefully with the right kind of powder. It's Imam Amin Muhammad of Masjid Muhammad of Atlantic City, New Jersey, and we make up the Black Imams Roundtable. Alhamdulillah. So we want to thank you all for joining us tonight. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to facilitate ease for us in relating this information to make it beneficial. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to accept it from us. Amin. Alhamdulillah. So the first order of business, please be sure to like and share this on your platforms, inshallah ta'ala. And also, try to pay that entry fee right from the beginning. Inshallah, we make a request of a modest donation of $10 per person. And we normally reach between 50 and 100 people, on a live podcast. And there are many others who watch afterwards. And shout out to all the people who watch us and support us. And they may not necessarily, comment or anything like that. But we also get a lot of feedback from people who say that they support us, inshallah. And we appreciate everybody who takes the time out of their evening to be with us. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless you all and to give you a great reward. Alhamdulillah. Okay, so tonight's topic is called The Power of Organized Black Folk. And so we took this topic in honor of MLK celebration that'll be coming up, I think is on Monday, right? Yeah, the MLK Day is observed on Monday, and his actual birthday is tomorrow. And it coincides, incidentally, with the inauguration of incoming President Donald Trump. So that just shows you it's always something when the Black people try to get something. Whenever we try to have something on our own, they always do something to block it. And so the discussion will be kind of revolving around that tonight, inshallah. The power of organized Black folk. And so my discussion on it will kind of take a look from the view of the civil rights movement, and how that was one of the most monumental expressions of Black folk being organized, and how born out of necessity, and in response to the racism, the blatant racism that was part of American culture, still part of American culture, part of the American structure, and at times it was really law on the books. And so, inshallah, I want to discuss that tonight, inshallah ta'ala. So, for this one, I'm trying to do it for all of them, but I actually prepared a PowerPoint, inshallah. So let me see if I can load this up. Okay. Let me see if I can load this up. Give me a second. So while I'm doing that and figuring this out, inshallah, you all can make sure you like and share, inshallah. This might take me a moment. What's going on here? I haven't done one of these in a while. But I'm still, got energy off the last meeting we had in Atlantic City. And before you all came on, Imam Amin had the flyer up about the event we're going to have in February 21st and 22nd, inshallah ta'ala. And also, remember, we'll be in Newark, New Jersey on the 26th of this month, inshallah, to continue our discussion in Aqidah at-Tahawi, inshallah. Okay, I think I got it. See, it was coming up. Okay. Okay, so I've entitled this "The Power of Organized Black Folk," and so this is a discussion on the importance of unification for the purpose of progress, as a presentation that's exclusive by me, Imam Faheem, of the Quba School and Islamic Center, on behalf of the BIRT and the 3453 family. So everything that I do, inshallah, that is the foundation. It's for us as Muslims in general, Black Imam, my fellow comrades, inshallah. And then on top of that, our family that we develop online, alhamdulillah. So, and whoever else, whoever rides with us, inshallah, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to keep us all united. All right, so now I got to figure out how to change these slides. Okay, wait a minute. Okay. Oh, here it is. All right, so the first slide, I put it here in the title, When We Were Colored, because they used to call us colored folks, and then we have all of these things about what we should name ourselves. So I wanted to start, and we talk about the civil rights movement. One of the crowning moments was the Civil Rights Act of 1964 that was passed into law. It was signed into law on July 2nd, 1964, and it was a landmark piece of legislation that prohibited discrimination based on race, color, religion, sex, national origin, and outlawed racial segregation in public accommodations in schools and employment discrimination. So that's an echo to the Jim Crow laws that came before that, and they were supposedly ended in 1965. And so before the Civil Rights Act was signed in 1964, there were a number of attempts made to get this law as far back as 1946. So after World War II, Harry Truman was the president of the United States, and he had formed this committee called the President's Committee on Civil Rights. And so they formed that committee with the intention to take a look at the civil rights that people were asking about. So you would just imagine in 1946, after all the time that we had been here as Black folks, it wasn't until this time where they really started thinking about giving us our rights as citizens. So they said they had to look into these things about civil rights. And so, you remember after World War II, we had the Tuskegee Airmen, and we had all these people who made major contributions in the war and were still discriminated against when they came back. So it was things like this that were happening in the society. How can we go fight for this country and, give our lives for this country and then come back and still got to go to a colors only restaurant or colors only train, or, can't drink. The water's the same, but they divided between colors and whites and all this kind of stuff. And so that's when they first started, where they started really, okay, we're going to look into this. After all of the stuff that happened, Jim Crow, the Black Codes, the KKK, all of this stuff that happened after the Emancipation Proclamation. And it wasn't until 1963, almost 20 years later, that when JFK, he introduced this bill where it became serious. And for those who remember, I don't remember, it was before my time, but he broadcast this on national television, and that's what made it monumental, because he was like the first president to openly, discuss these things and try to champion the rights of Black folks or colored people, right? And so it just makes you think, when people ask us about, our position with this country sometimes, and why Black people be so angry, because these people never acted out of any moral responsibility to us to recognize us as regular human beings. It was always after some resistance, and then there was some legislation that happened. It was never like, wow, this is wrong, we wrong, so let's right our wrongs. It was never any moral responsibility for them to do it. It was by some law or by some pushback, or circumstances happened that there was no other recourse except for them to do it, And that's something that we should always keep in mind. We should always keep in mind. And so in 1963, and when JFK proposed the bill, this is when they really started to take this thing serious. So the next slide is, in the meantime, in between time, we talked about Jim Crow laws. So state and local laws that enforce racial segregation in the United States. It was legal. It was legal for them to have laws in separate states where, you know, they could decide, you know, where you can drink, where you can eat, where you can catch the train, where you can use the bathroom. And, you know, this really was a means to subjugate Black people, particularly. And then in the meantime, in between time, we had sundown towns. And so they existed from like 1890 up until 1960. And there were even documentation of sundown towns existing into the 1980s. And I saw not too long ago that there was a town in upstate New York where they had it on video. It was in like 1978, where they were telling Black folks they had to get out of the town. And it was daytime, like they were not allowed there. And, you know, the traces of this is still apparent, because some places, if you go in America right now, it feels like a place where, you know, you don't belong there. Right? You know, you get that feeling, man. This, you know, if you ever traveled, drove across country, especially down south, man, I don't belong in this town. Let's get out of here. You know, you know, then you start seeing pickup trucks, and, you know, some places you see Confederate flags, you know, and it's crazy. So this is all the traces of structural racism. And so they approximated the number of towns as 10,000 sundown towns, meaning that when the sun went down, you better not, as a Black person, be caught in that town, because they could kill you. And it was an extension of segregation laws that was already, so if something happened to you, nobody was going to do anything, right? And so it excluded particularly Blacks, but they also excluded everybody else. And I don't know if you all heard of this town called Anna, Illinois. I think it's connected with another name now. I think it's Anna Jonesboro or something. But the name of that town, it was called Anna, and it stood for Ain't No Niggas Allowed. Ain't No Niggas Allowed. That's what they named the town. You know, it's like a small town. I think even now the population is about 5,000 people. But they used to have signs where you came into a town, don't get caught here after sundown, you know. And if they killed you, there was no repercussions. Nobody was going to do anything. You know what I'm saying? And so this is the history of this America that we were trying to, you know, assimilate into and integrate with, and trying to find some humanity with people who never gave a damn about our humanity, you know. 10,000 towns, think about that, up until the 1980s. And there are towns right now that they might not have the signs, but they got all the characteristics of a sundown town. And even if nothing happens, you will not feel right in that town, you know. And you know, these people made all of this hoopla about changing names because it was offensive. This town is still Anna, Illinois. How come they don't change towns like, you know, Fredericksburg or Williamsburg or Williamstown? This means that some white English slave owner named William or Frederick came and made this land his and named it after himself. Why we don't change the name of those towns? You know, it's crazy. So in all of that, and trying to, you know, get civil rights during the civil rights movement, all of these things were happening. And so the civil rights movement, they usually say that it was from 1954 to around 1968. But traces of it go back to the 1940s and even a little bit before that. You know, the NAACP was established in I think it was 1921 or something like that. And they were, and the NAACP, for those who didn't know, would not have a Black leader at the head of it for 40 years. For 40 years. The first Black leader of the NAACP, I think it was, if I'm not mistaken, I think it was Medgar Evers, if I'm not mistaken. But there was Jews. It was Yahud who founded that, right? And it was an organization. The civil rights movement was an organized effort by Black Americans to end racial discrimination and gain equal rights under the law. It was the law to discriminate against Black people. It was the law to deny Black folks humanity. It was the law to use violence against Black people whenever they felt like it, and there were no repercussions. And so some of the key movements, some of the key moments in the civil rights movement was the Brown versus Board of Education. And so that was the real monumental Supreme Court ruling that was spearheaded by Thurgood Marshall. The Montgomery bus boycott, which was when Rosa Parks was, you know, asked to get out of her seat and she wouldn't move. And that sparked a year-long boycott in Montgomery, Alabama, that really put a dent in the bus system there. The Little Rock Nine, many of you all know these things. The Little Rock Nine, 1957, in Little Rock, Arkansas, where 9 students who were trying to get admitted into school were blocked, and they had to call the what is it called? The National Guard in there to secure them, to make sure they were able to attend school. All they wanted to do was learn. All they wanted was the American dream, and it was denied because of the color of their skin. You know, and even after they were admitted to the school, they were still harassed. You know, the Greensboro sit-in. You know, the Greensboro sit-in, as the civil rights movement was starting to take off, they used to stage nonviolent protests. And one of the things that they did, they would train their people that no matter what, if you do these sit-ins, you can't respond. And so this Greensboro sit-in, I think it was like 4 or 7 students who went to a Woolworth lunch counter where only white folks could eat, right? And so they sat in the area, and then they were harassed, they were spat on, they were attacked, things thrown at them, and they still stayed in there. And so the Greensboro sit-in in Greensboro, North Carolina was significant because it started staging all of these sit-ins around the country around that time. So people were starting to wake up. Black folks were starting to like, we had enough. We got to do something. We got to resist this, because all of these promises they made us after all of this thing happened since the Emancipation Proclamation, that we were supposed to be freed. And now all of these things were in law, in place to prevent us from making progress. And so the Greensboro sit-in, right? And so then the Freedom Rides of 1961. And so they were in Mississippi and other places. They would go down there and have freedom rides to, encourage people to vote and stuff like that, and try to, increase the consciousness of people. And this is where people, you read about the 3 young men. I forget what year it was. I think it was 61. Those three students that went down there, and they were trying to get people to vote, and they ended up being killed. And I forget their names. But then they said, I remember it was like the Mississippi something. It was a book that was written, and they wrote in the book that when they was, if you all remember the name, you could say it, but it was 3 civil rights workers, and they were 2 of them were Jewish and one was Black, right? And when they went down there, their bodies were missing, right? They went down there to do some civil rights work, activism, and their bodies were missing, and they found them in the bottom of the river or the bottom of the lake. And they said they reported that when they were looking for them, they found so many dead bodies down there, so many remains of people that were thrown in the water that it was ridiculous. So they were looking for 3 people, and they found dozens of people who died, that we will never know their names, I forget the names, but we can look that up. And of course, some of the highlights was the Children's Crusade. That was in Birmingham, where they started protesting and let children go to school and break the segregation. So all of these things were leading up to the Civil Rights Act of 1964 being passed. And of course, the March on Washington with Dr. Martin Luther King. And so when we talk about these things, these are the key moments. But also in this time, this is when Emmett Till was killed, 1955, and I forget what the lady that was, is she still alive? Or she might have died recently. But the lady that accused him, I forget what it was. I can't remember, because when you hear about that stuff, you get so angry. I think she finally admitted that, she lied or something like that,
Yeah, she accused him of whistling at her.
Yeah, she accused him of whistling at her, and then there were some white men that came and damaged Emmett Till so bad that his face was unrecognizable, and his mom did a G move, and she was like, I want America to know historically she had an open casket. So she wanted everybody to see what he did, what they did to him, Yeah, and she admitted it, but it was like when she was in her 80s, and I'm not mistaken if she's still alive or she just recently died, And then during this time, Medgar Evers was assassinated, and so many things that happened. I don't really want to highlight those things because just in the midst of us trying to get us together, to resist these things that have been put in place to marginalize and subjugate us and to keep us down and to keep us from making progress, what we were owed according to the law that they said, And then when the law was in our favor, they changed the laws, or they fought against the laws, or they used violence, And so this has been our struggle here, that discriminating against Black people used to be the law in this country in recent history. 1964, there are people who are still alive right now and they can remember that day. There are people who are still alive right now who can remember when they marched with Dr. Martin Luther King. There are people right now who can vividly express about the discrimination that they received, Okay, yeah, her name was Carolyn Bryant Dunham, and she recently died. But before she died, she finally admitted from 1955 up until now. She recently died maybe in the past few years. You talking about some 60 years or so, right? That she finally admitted that, what kind of stuff is this? What kind of conscience was this woman living with that she knows she lied and got this boy killed? And it's in the annals of history, and she still held on to it right up until when she left, And so this is the history of the country that we live in that sparked this civil rights movement. And so, Black people felt like they had enough. Black people started feeling like, we had enough of this nonsense. We got to do something. And so the civil rights movement, the foundation of it was to have a nonviolent approach because, Martin Luther King, he was influenced by Mahatma Gandhi from India and the nonviolence that he did against the British in India. And so he used that approach. And of course, many of us, when we learn history, and that was the history that they taught us, that we were just supposed to be like passive and during these times in the civil rights movement, in the Children's Crusade, when you see some of those videos of police sicking dogs and water hoses on citizens, that was at some of these incidences and many more, where police were just beating people randomly on all of them because they wanted to get their rights as American citizens, And so all of this is what led up to the passage. So now, and if you think about it, it wasn't out of no moral obligation to pass the Civil Rights Act. It was because, okay, Black people getting fed up and they out here and they ready to go to war. You know what I mean? So Martin Luther King preached nonviolence, but then now during the latter part of this, we started to see where Black people were starting to take a more militant approach, And so in between 1960 and 1963, Al-Hajj Malik al-Shabazz, rahimahullah, was starting to be vocal and starting to counter some of these things and not being a fan of nonviolence, And he was saying about these marches and these peaceful protests, he said, we ain't going to be singing because we too busy swinging, right? We're not going to let people do that to us, Yeah, it was Cheney, Goodman, and Swerman. Okay, thank you, Sister Farida. There was those three civil rights activists that went down to Mississippi and they ended up getting killed, So the next slide. So the Civil Rights Act actually spawned this act, which is called the Immigration and Nationality Act of 1965, and which is also known as the Hart-Celler Act. It was signed into law on October the 3rd, 1965, and it overhauled the Immigration Act of 1924. That act of 1924 was on the books where they were limiting the number of immigrants that were allowed entry to the U.S., and it was based on the national origins quota. So what they were doing is that all of the national people of different nationalities from around the world who were trying to come into America, they were only allowed 2% of the total people with that nationality to come in. And so it was like a tracking system, right? And they totally excluded Asians. And then after a while, they started limiting the number of people who were considered like the low people of Europeans, like Italians and Irish. They started limiting them coming in because, prior to that, they were coming over openly. And then the criminals and stuff from Italy and Ireland and all these kind of things, this is when the mafia started to take over. And they settled in places like New York and you could see movies like Gangs of New York, where when they came over and they started bringing the, La Costa Nostra thing into New York City and other places, and the mafia started to spread. So these were criminal Europeans. And so they started at the end part, they're starting to put a limit to how many of them could come over. And so they wanted to restrict it to like upper people like the Scottish and Welsh and British, all those people who considered of noble European stock. And then they excluded Asians totally except for Japanese and Filipinos because, you know, they know they went over there and ravaged their lands in these wars. And so they kind of like had a soft spot for them, right? They were the only Asians that they would allow into America. And so, and this act of the Immigration Nationality Act of 1965 repealed that act of 1924. So for 40 years, you know, there was discrimination even against other people other than us, you know. Okay, yeah, y'all free to come over. This is the melting pot. This is the great America. But nah, only 2%, you know. So you in the early part, you don't see any Africans. You don't see any people from the Middle East coming over here. And the passage of this act actually spawned it and paved the way for a lot of the immigrants and a lot of the Muslims who came over here, you know, and the numbers started growing. It was a result of the Civil Rights Act, which is a result of the blood, sweat, and tears of Black folk. You know, so you know, when people talk about, you know, that was history was so long ago, just let it go. No, we are the people who put in the work, and our ancestors, you know, put in the work. So all of the luxuries and amenities that people enjoy in this country who are not white Anglo-Saxon Protestants, right? Who are WASP. You know, they used to call them white Anglo-Saxon Protestants. These were the people who would prefer, these was the preferred white folk in here. So these were the landowners and the business owners and the slave owners, right? These were the people who were supposed to be noble, right? And so, of course, they started allowing more people in, but it wasn't out of any moral obligation. It was because of all of the efforts that was put by the civil rights movement. So the civil rights movement has a very significant place in our history. And, you know, we were talking earlier about when we look back at it and we, you know, us, especially us three men, and many of us like us, we looking back at it like, you know, man, it couldn't have been me. You know, ain't no way no cops was pulling. And that mentality started coming near the mid to late 60s. So then the Black Panthers was formed. You know, Imam Amin was part of the Student Nonviolent Coordinated Committee. He was the president, right? And then, you know, he started getting vocal. Stokely Carmichael, you know, during the time of Martin Luther King, his last year, 1967, there used to be a lot of you know, talk about MLK, like, you know, this nonviolent approach is not helping. You know, we got to do something. They burning our homes, they hanging people, they doing things, and we're just supposed to be locking arms and saying we shall overcome. Nah, that's no good. And then, so after Al-Hajj Malik al-Shabazz was assassinated in 1965, then this movement started taking a more militant approach, you know, and people were even, you know, starting to move away from Dr. King, you know, because they felt like his movement had, you know, passed its time. You know, we're not in Birmingham no more. We, you know, we up north, you know, with these Yankees, you know, and they, you know, they play different, you know. So, and you start to see the transition to take a more militant approach. And so, you know, Dr. King was faced with this thing, and even Dr. King, you got to read his last speech or hear his last speech where he started talking about we coming to get our check. So he said about when we went on 1963 March on Washington, he was like saying the next time we're coming to get our check. And so he was already at the height of his power, where had he started, you know, go along with this turn of events, imagine how many people would have joined him, you know, if he had just be like, listen, we're not doing no nonviolent no more. We're not going to attack nobody, but we're going to reserve the right to defend ourselves according to the Second Amendment. And, you know, in 1967, Dr. Martin Luther King met with Elijah Muhammad, you know, and so he was on the brink of something else. So when you look at when he met with Elijah Muhammad, and then just some of the things that were happening, some of the things that he was starting to say. So one of the famous quotes that you might not hear, but if you study, you know, he was saying, like, I'm afraid that I have entered my people into a burning building, meaning that, you know, all of this thing about integration and trying to remove segregation and trying to assert our rights as Black folks to live in this country, to live with the people, you know, and that he had a, you know, he had a dream that all of us will be judged by not the color of our skin, but the content of our character, right? But he started taking a different theme at the end. And you just imagine, had he not been assassinated, he was hooking up with people like Elijah Muhammad. There was even a time when him and Malcolm met, and then Malcolm had even said, I'm going to stop, really attacking these black leaders. I'm really going to stop attacking these black leaders and start looking at a strategy that we can really build together. Even though we have different, views, we have different theological viewpoints, different religions, our basis is really to help our people to overcome. So we got the same, we're on parallel with what we're trying to achieve, but we just have different approaches, And so you could just imagine how that climate is going to be changing and how scary it would have been, when people are united, when black folks are organized, they're united, they're on the same page, they have the same mission, they have the same ideologies, and they're not letting nothing stop them, then this becomes power, as we've seen that the civil rights movement opened up so many things for people, And so people who come over as immigrants, you have to think these people who now, if you call them kuffar and this kind of stuff, okay, but the work that they put in is allowing you to enjoy the freedoms that you enjoy. And then, even some of these early Americans, right? They didn't even want to, who came as Muslims, some of them didn't want to identify with their nationality. Some of them were moving with these people, assimilate, and say that they were white. They say that they were white, And they didn't really mess with us as the people who, even if it was a perverted form of Islam, there was something that, that happened and that we had some exposure before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless us to come to true Sunni Islam, But there was a time that many of them, even now, they didn't mess with us. They came over for the purpose of pursuing the American dream, And then some of them kind of found out, okay, there's enough of us here. Let's open up a masjid, because they had a history of Islamic tradition from the country that they came from. But a lot of them didn't come here to establish deen. They came here to do business. They came here to get the money, go back to their homeland, even bring some of their people back, even up until this very day, because us as a people who are, who are in this country, people who are the offspring of people who were victims of chattel slavery, we never had an opportunity to be like, I'm going back home. We had to find a way to make a connection to the motherland, even though that's where we come from, but nowhere will we have a connected chain where I can go back and visit my elders and where they come from and stuff like that, And so the civil rights movement was a very pivotal moment in Black American history, and then American history because, of the change that it made. So it brings me to my last couple of slides, or what we can take from it as Muslims, is that organized resistance and the deen. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has already given us a format where he says that believing men and women, they are allies to one another. What makes them allies? They're enjoying what is right and they forbid what is wrong. They establish the prayer, they give zakat, and most of all, putting the end part, that is the most important point, they obey Allah and his messenger. So that is our unifying factor, that we enter into Islam, that after all of that stuff that our people went through, it is no coincidence that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is restoring the people who in this country who have been taken from their homelands, who have been subjected to chattel slavery, but subjected to all types of discrimination. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is bringing us back to the true path of Islam, right? And so that's a ni'mah from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that's part of the righting of the wrongs that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving us the deen of the format, right? And the format is all of these things mentioned here, but most important, our unifying factor is to have one mission, obeying Allah and his messenger. And to the level and to the extent that we do that obedience and then we do that service is how we're going to be united, inshallah ta'ala. And even when we talk about people who believe in Allah and his messenger, obey Allah and his messenger, but then they have a little distortion about the creed, there is something that we still realize that we have one mission, that there is an upliftment for us as a people, and not to exclude any others, because we've always been welcoming. We've always been, open to other people, even when they excluded us, and even Muslims who excluded us, even to this very day, we're still welcoming to them. But there's a point that we have to realize that for us we have to have one mission, and that is obeying the law and its messenger. And whoever is on that mission with us, yes, we welcome them, but not forgetting how people have slighted us, how people have marginalized us, and all of these things we can never forget. And then, you know, in my personal view, this is my personal view, we should never let that fire go out. You know, that fire of being, you know, just a little bit angry about what has happened. No, we don't dwell on it, and we don't, you know, we're not victims of it, but never forget, and never let these people forget what their history is, because now they're trying to erase it. Now they're trying to obliterate the history that is part of this American fabric, you know. And so now as we go on, we have to make sure that all of the things that we miss when we've been denied, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us assistance with the deen. And so for us, it's going to be religious first. It's going to be duty to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala first. But then the second part is we got to concentrate on our people. And or more specifically, we got to concentrate on our people first. We have to get our house in order. You know, Al-Hajj Malik al-Shabazz said that. He said, you know, we can be behind closed doors and we can argue with each other and differ with each other, but we have to come out as a united front. Come out as a united front. You know, don't let people know that if we got things going on in-house, the problems that we have, when we're in front of the world, we should have some unification. We should have a united front, inshallah ta'ala. And so this is my last slide. This is supposed to be an intro, but, you know, after this, I'm going to disappear. So organized resistance is involved around, you know, understanding what we have to do as far as the deen. And then, you know, after that, having training, you know, the salat is part of it. You know, the Allah loves those who fight in his cause in the row as though they are single structured firmly. Although this is an ayah referring to when you're in actual battle, you know, we use it. You know, we're not in actual battle. There is not an enemy openly attacking us as far as war, but there's an ideological attack on us. There's a moral attack on us. There's all of these other things that are trying to come to us to minimize our efforts to obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and his messenger, sallallahu alayhi wasallam. So we have to be, you know, symbolically, like if we're on the lines of war and having our hearts together and having one united front, like, you know, having lines straightened. You know, this is from Surah As-Sifat, you know, like straightening the lines, you know. So when we do this and we will understand this concept that we have to do for us first, before we can really engage with somebody else, we still have to fix these things that have centuries of, you know, subjugation for us. Centuries that even now, if you have the discussion about some humanity, about repayments, about reparations, they still don't feel no moral obligation to give you a chance, right? It's all this legislation fighting around, you know, and, you know, either we are going to, you know, because it sparks a lot of conversations, you know, that's our rights. We should fight for our rights and all of that stuff, just like we had to do before. But we're still in the same battle of trying to appeal to a people who never saw us as human, who never saw us as equal. We're still in the same battle trying to have people recognize us. We're still trying to walk into a house that might not be on flames burning, but still there's, you know, the ruins of that fire is still there. And we're walking into ruins. We're walking into ruins trying to take something back. So it's either going to be that we have one united front on things like that, or we have another united front where we are taking care of ourselves, you know. There's a line by James Brown, you know, who was also pretty active in the 60s through music. He said in one of his songs, I don't want nobody to give me nothing. Open the door and I get it myself, you know. So I know some of you older people might remember that, you know. But what he meant was like, you know, it's a time for us to do for self. Stop trying to rely on this system or appeal to this system who has shown us time and time again, even now in 2025, it won't be hard to go online and find some type of discriminatory action against a black person, whether it's through a job or even people still calling us the N-word. People still calling us the N-word, you know. You can easily find it, you know, and that's sad. And so part of it is like we have to think about what part we want to play. We still want to, you know, because we see legislation works after hard work and all of that. But then there's a part like we need to understand we need to do for ourselves, you know, that we need to carve out our own little community in this country, just like other foreigners who came over here. When they came over here, they moved to their own towns. They opened up their own businesses and they got their people to move around them and they built communities. So much so that now, you know, they excluded Chinese people. It's just the irony of it, how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala works. In that bill in 1924, when they restricted immigrants, they totally excluded Chinese people. And now in every major city, there's a Chinatown. Every major city, you're going to find a Chinatown or at least a Chinese store. You're definitely going to find a Chinese store. And you'll be hard pressed to ever find any kind of, when there was a problem with the economy, you don't see Chinese stores closing down. I have yet to see one. You know, so this is what we need. This is something I want to give you all to think about, inshallah ta'ala, where we need to think about the power of organized black folk. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us a model that came before us with our people and being organized and unified and being totally committed with their actions, with their energies, with their efforts, with their finances. You know, when that Montgomery bus boycott was taking place, the people got together and found out who needed a ride to go where, and they totally boycotted that, where the bus company had to rethink it. Okay, wait, these black people making us money. And now, you know, when we lose that money, now we there's some leverage there. Think about it even today. Where do we go wrong that now we have the biggest entity in the world with hip hop, and then we have people who founded it are broke? You know? Still the same thing. People are blocking us from us having progress because of race, you know, and that's the only reason why, you know. And even if they claim all of this, you know, liberation and all of this nonsense and equal rights and all of that nonsense they talk, America structure is based in racism, you know. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us the ability to get through it. And then he also gave us the deen to see another outlet. And so we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us basira, to use what we've been given and to make a better situation for us in this dunya. And so I'll end there. That's the end of that, inshallah. I'll stop this. And so that was all I had. Okay, I think that worked. So I hope we put enough. You know, I hope I didn't take too much time. I know Imam Amin's ready to go in.
He said, I hope I didn't take too much time. 42 minutes.
Okay, alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen wa afdalu salat wa atamu taslim ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een. Wa radiyallahu ta'ala an sadati tabi'een wa ulama al-amalin wa a'immatul arba'at al-mujtahideen wa muqalidihim ila yawmiddin. Amma ba'd. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, all of you, everybody. Alhamdulillah. I know just from the comments that you all already agree with me that that was a beautiful and powerful presentation that Imam Faheem just gave. But let me show you how the hearts are united. You know, before we got on, we didn't have like a powwow, like, okay, what are you going to talk about? Okay, I'm going to mention this. Oh yeah, you mentioned that, right? That we didn't have that conversation. But the amazing thing, I don't know if you all saw me like laughing, but look how Allah works. Imam Faheem ended his presentation with an ayat of Quran, the same ayat that I intend to start my presentation with. SubhanAllah. Allah. We didn't like, okay, you mentioned this verse. Okay, I'm going to mention that verse too. That didn't happen. You know, and the verse that he ended with is from Surah Al-Saf, chapter number 61, verse number 4, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Inna Allah yuhibbu ladina yuqatiluna fi sabilihi safan ka'annahum bunyanun marsus. Indeed, Allah loves those who fight in his way as if they were a solid cemented structure. And he mentioned this because we're talking about the power of organized Black folks. And so this is one of the verses in the Quran that indicate and call to the fact that when we come together, we should not just be together in any kind of disorganized, haphazard way, a solid cemented structure, organized in ranks. And then after that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَإِذْ قَالَ مُوسَى لِقَوْمِهِ. And remember when Moses said to his people, why do I mention that? Because Musa is talking to his people, which is a problem that we have that needs to be corrected. We do not see ourselves as a people. So how can you organize and work together if you don't even see yourselves as a people? And so I want to come back to that, but I want to call your attention to another example dealing with the power of organized Black folk. I want to call your attention to the UNIA, the Universal Negro Improvement Association. Y'all remember Imam Faheem talked about the different names that they used to call us? Well, they used to call us, and even we used to call ourselves, Negroes. And so the UNIA was Marcus Garvey's organization. Marcus Garvey lived between 1887 and 1940. Marcus Garvey was Jamaican. A lot of people who call themselves Pan-Africanist or say that they believe in Pan-Africanism usually attribute themselves or try to connect themselves in some way, shape, form, or fashion back to Marcus Garvey. He's an extremely important person, not just for Black folks, but because of Muslims, even for the Muslims. If you want to understand Islam in this country, the growth of Islam, the spread of Islam, and how Muslims organize themselves in this country, if Marcus Garvey's organization is not included, your understanding is incomplete. Even before Marcus Garvey, his organization got off the ground, one thing that's very important is another Muslim figure from Egypt. His name is Dusay Muhammad Ali. He was a Black Egyptian. And he, just to give you some dates, he was born in 1866, died in 1945 in Nigeria. But he was with Marcus Garvey in London. And he mentored Marcus Garvey in London. He was like the mentor, the old head, or not the old head, but the an influential person, one of the influential people in Marcus Garvey's life. And so a lot of you won't understand or recognize the impact that Marcus Garvey had. A lot of the talk when people talk about doing for self and and that type of thing, a lot of that goes back to him. And so he had businesses. When I say him, his organization, the Negroes Factory Corporation. He had factories. He had a publication, media. The name of the paper was the Negro World. The Negro World. This same Dusay Muhammad Ali was a writer for that paper. He wrote in that paper, this Black Egyptian Muslim. And famously, he had the Black Star Line, which is because like the Titanic was part of the White Star Line. Black folks couldn't ride on that. I don't know if y'all knew that. The White Star Line, the Titanic, Black folks couldn't ride on that. Some of y'all be watching that movie, getting all, having warm and fuzzy feelings, crying at the romance when they wouldn't let your black behind on the boat in the first place, right? Right? So Marcus Garvey He started the Black Star Line. He wanted to start commerce and stuff between the blacks in the diaspora, like America and Africa. They kind of like used to call them like the Back to Africa movement, and that's really a mischaracterization of what his movement represented. They, when people talk about him, you think that he just wanted everybody to get up and go back to Africa. That's not even real. That's not even true. So, and the FBI itself, even before it became known as the FBI, I forgot what it was called before they called it the FBI. But like their first case was Marcus Garvey. They entrapped him. Their first case investigation was to entrap him, which they did. They convicted him of mail fraud and had him deported. Why is this important? It's important for a lot of reasons. Number one, just to give you an idea, they had like a month-long convention in New York City, the UNIA. They had a convention at Madison Square Garden in 1920. 20,000 black folks. And I think that number is an underestimate. 20,000 black folks was there. UNIA. 20,000 black folks in 1920. No internet. No, all of the communication was in-house. I need you to think about that. They had like a parade in New York City. When you look at video clips of Marcus Garvey, you see him riding. He's decked out in this, regal type stuff. That is a video clip from that parade in 1920. You know that famous picture where you see him, the camera like snaps, he goes like this, like that famous picture. That's from that parade, that video in August of 1920. They drafted a constitution and elected him the provisional president of, I forgot the official title, but of black folks. Like when you have a country, for example, like even this country, the United States, they drafted a constitution for the United States of America even before they started fighting the British. They had a provisional constitution. They had a plan. They said, we're going to get up from under the British. We're going to fight them. We're going to rebel against them, and we're going to start our own country. And this is what it's going to look like when we finish. And they didn't even start yet. That's what this country. Well, Marcus Garvey and them was doing the same thing. So they had a provisional constitution, a provisional government, a provisional president, him, and all of these things, right? And a lot of people don't know, but there were thousands of members of the UNIA who were Muslim. There were thousands of members who were Muslim. And if you know Malcolm's history, you know that both of his parents were active members in the UNIA. Even his mother was a regular writer, a contributing writer to that newspaper, the Negro World. But back to the Muslims in that organization. They had a meeting, and they were one of the agenda items on the meeting was to decide what the official religion for the movement should be. And us in America, most back then, most of us Christian, but like I said, he had a lot of Muslim in the organization. They found that issue too divisive. And so they said, we're not going to have like an official religion. But if you read Marcus Garvey's works, he spoke very highly of Islam. But they had a mantra, like a saying. And it was inspired from that meeting and from the Muslims in the organization. One God, one aim, one destiny. That was their mantra. And that came from the Muslim influence that was in the group. And so I'm not going to take too much time, but if we do have enough time, I'm going to talk about other organizations that was connected with Islam. But just to mention one of them, like the Nation of Islam. If you go back and look at a lot of those old videos of the UNIA and see them marching, if you're not paying attention, you may think you're watching the Nation of Islam, Fruit of Islam marching. They had a paramilitary arm, like what they call the FOI, the Fruit of Islam. You would think that you would be like, you would watch that, you'd be like, aha, that's where they got it from. Because some people even say that Elijah Muhammad was part of the UNIA. Allah knows best. I don't know. But some people say that he was. But one of the things that I want to mention before I pass the microphone is that you see, I don't care what type of organization you're talking about, whether this organization, when I say organization, I mean black folks, whether they claim to be Muslim or not. You see some measure of progress and success with their activities when they're organized. That you don't see with us Muslims who insist on being unorganized. When we came to Ahlus Sunnati wal Jama'ah, we came to what we thought was the proper creed, but we gave up seeing ourselves as a people and organization. And that has to be rectified right now, post haste. That has to be rectified. When we came to Ahlus Sunnah, or what we thought was Ahlus Sunnah, and we came to what we thought was the proper creed, we stopped seeing ourselves as a people. Being black became sinful. It became asabiya. It became something. It became un-Islamic. So we stopped seeing ourselves as a people, and we stopped organizing. We stopped acting or behaving in an organized fashion. And like I said, that needs to be corrected right now. And one more thing before I go on. When Imam Faheem ended, he was talking about certain things, and it reminded me of something. A lot of young people and non-black people, they don't understand the degree to which these people hate us. The hate is not coming from us. The hate is directed to us. They think we be tripping or exaggerating. Now, I'm just going to give you an example. I don't know if you're in the comments, Amira. If you're in the comments, maybe you can post a link or some information. But you can look it up right now. There's a nurse who is either being investigated or has been indicted. I forgot. But there's a nurse who was breaking black babies' bones in the NICU in the hospital. This is in the news right now. There's a nurse who is being investigated or has been indicted for breaking babies' bones in a neonatal intensive care unit in the hospital that she worked in. And so sometimes when you hear news like this, you may think that, like, wow, that's horrible. That must be a one-off type thing. It's not a one-off type thing. This type of thing is becoming popular just now because we have social media, we have pictures, and we have cameras, and we have things where we can document and bring receipts about these things in real time. But you talk to black folks in general about stuff that's done to black folks in this country historically by people in these institutions. This is why black folks don't trust hospitals, don't trust schools, don't trust no type of institution that's for lack of better words, institution. A lot of times we do everything even unnecessarily under the radar. Why? because of stuff like this. And we all got stories of stuff like this. Like, for example, this is in the news too right now. This is less horrific than a nurse breaking black baby's bones in the NICU. There was this black girl who wanted to return something to Home Depot, and she went to the Home Depot in that's closer to the black neighborhood where she brought the stuff from, and she had her receipt, but she didn't have the debit card that she paid for it with, so they wouldn't give her money back. And she's recording this on her phone or whatever. She's like, "Why are you doing this? I got the receipt right here, whatever, right? You mean tell me I got to go to the white folks Home Depot to get this stuff, to get my stuff right?" And she went to the white folks Home Depot. They gave her money back, no problem, right? And then she went back to the original Home Depot. See, y'all made me go to the white folks Home Depot to get my money back. Why do y'all have these different policies for black folks? And that's the point why I mentioned it. That a lot of times there are written and unwritten policies directed specifically for black people. Specifically for black people, to disenfranchise them, to take away some rights that everyone else got. But if we express these things around young people or non-black people, they think, man, y'all exaggerate. You're kind of like paranoid, right? Everything ain't against y'all. Yes, it is. You just can't detect it. We experience it. And a lot of times we don't have the skill or the knowledge or the receipts to articulate it in a fashion that will make it believable to other people. But this stuff is real and it's not new. It's been going on since we got here. And this is why we need black organization. And this is why we hurt ourselves by not having black organization. And alhamdulillah, Supreme Shabazz, I got that book, alhamdulillah, Medical Apartheid. Alhamdulillah. I didn't read it yet, but I got it. Alhamdulillah. Imam, Amin. I read your lips. You said 1 second, but your mic is on mute.
Good morning, man.
Please forgive me. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. You know, I was listening to y'all and my mind was all over the place, because as we talk about conditions of our people, black people in the United States, and that can be extended around the world, and all the challenges that we face. You know, I was thinking about my own history as my journey through life as a black man. And I went to the university in my mind. I just drifted while you was talking, Imam Faheem. Because you were talking about, civil rights and Jim Crow. And I thought about, the industrial prison complex. And I particularly was thinking about the federal system, as I spent a lot of time there. And I was thinking about modern day slavery. And a large percent, over 30% of federal inmates are African American, are black, right? That's a lot of people, right? And that's the majority of the prison population. That's a lot. So many, and a lot of them are males, black males. And a lot of them at a point convert to Islam. So they're like living captives to a system of injustice. And I was thinking about how the government enriches itself off this slave labor population. So I was thinking about, they have in the federal prison system what they call UNICOR, Federal Prison Industries. It's called UNICOR. And so my mind drifted, because I've been home for 25 years. So I was wondering, what's the pay? Like my mind went like, what are they getting paid now? So I looked it up. And it's still the same. 25 years later, it's still the same slave labor. And as I was thinking about it, I was like, dang, this is like a forgotten population among our people. So I remember when you would go into, reception, when you first get to the institution, they tell you about the institution. So they have every department within the institution that would come and tell you about the different things. Then the UNICOR guy would come, and I would never forget his line, because they're trying to get people to get in the UNICOR. Now, not everybody can get in there. There's a waiting list from here to New Mexico or Mexico to get in that joint. But the line that the guy would say was like, all these went before you, because they would usually go last. All these went before you. They're all one baggers. But UNICOR people are two baggers. Now, you don't want to be a one bagger. When you go to the commissary, you see a guy with one bag. But UNICOR guys, they two baggers. Right? White folks is deep. And that was like a pitch. And you can save some money, and you can send some money home. And this don't got to be as hard as it could be for everybody else. And so that would be a pitch, because a lot of guys, they got in these conspiracies. So they really didn't have money. They weren't the guy. So they had these ongoing criminal enterprises where they would lock up a bunch of people to make a case, but really only 2 or 3 people really had money. The rest of them was like, just got trapped up in a conspiracy, and they got 10, 15, 20 years with no money and no support. So UNICOR is like a savior for such people. So then, the person gets in UNICOR, and they get a pay scale. So it's basically 6 grades of scales of pay in UNICOR. And it's funny that it's still like this today. So when you first go in, you like a grade 5. You new guy, you come in, grade 5. Your salary, your pay, 23 cents an hour. 23 cents an hour. So that's a short time, because grade 5, they automatically bump you after a certain amount of time. I forget the time. It's not that long. And then you go to a grade 4. You go to 46 cents an hour. Then so they have now all of these grades, there are only a certain amount of people at each grade. So not everybody has the opportunity to advance. So grade 5, everybody gonna get out of that. Then grade 4, there's a certain amount of people in the factory. Then so after grade 4, you go to grade 3, 69 cents an hour. Most people are between grade 3 and grade 4. That's most of the people in the factory. They're either grade 4 or they can get up to a grade 3. Then you get to a grade 2, which is 92 cents per hour. And that thins out. Very few that are grade 2. Then the grade 1 is like, in our language, like, not necessarily, but he's like the overseer for the slaves. So he's like, when you get a grade 1, you like the supervisor of the other inmates. And the grade 1 is $1.15. And in each section, there's only 1 or 2 grade 1s. So not everybody get that. So wherever you are in the factory, that area may have 2 or maybe 3 grade 1s. I used to work in the office and I used to control all the payroll. So I forgot the numbers, but that was my job, to keep track. Yes, I was house Negro.
You know I was going. I was about to ask you. So you was in the house.
I was, because, you got to work computers. You got to have a little smarts. And, a lot of people couldn't do that. In those days, it wasn't like today. Computers wasn't everybody know how to work a computer. So very few could do that job. I was one of them. So I always had that, that good job. That was good Negro, right? But I forget the numbers. It's been a long time. But anyway, so in every section of the factory, it's only going to be like 2 grade 1s, maybe 3, and that's it. Everybody else is going to have those other grades. Then, if you're there long enough, in the whole factory, you get a premium grade. Now, there's only going to be about 3 people with a premium grade. These are like super house Negroes. No, I'm joking. They get $1.35 an hour. And you would be doing that for 10, 15, 20 years, right? Like from the time you go in to you go home, you may, if you get that grade 1, that means somebody ain't getting it. You may be in that position for 10 years. And then there is another scale. I was looking at all this. I'm just reminiscing. You get longevity of service. So you get paid for how long you've been in there, right? So after 18 months, they give you an extra 10 cents a day, not per hour. You get an extra 10 cents on your money, right? When you get to 30 months, so that's a year and a half. When you get to 30 months, 2.5 years, you get 15 cents. 42 months, you get 20 cents. After 5 years, you get 25 cents. And then at 84 months, you get 30 cents, right? And I was just thinking, as I'm going over these numbers, so the top paying guy, and I had that job, right, in the factory, after 7 years in that joint, he going to be pulling in roughly $12 a day, maybe 13, 14. If he works overtime, that could go up to 20 a day. And he's going to work 8 hours. You got to work 8 hours, right? And then you may work overtime, like 2 shifts. And at the end of that, you may have like $20, $24. And if you're at the top level, right? Think about that. And that's going on every day, all across the country, with a lot of African Americans who are doing it. Right? Think about that. Now, Furkan hated dudes in Unicorn because they was two baggers and he was a one bagger. But that's a modern day system that's going on. And when I was in Colorado, I think it was Colorado, they used to make $1 million a month in the factory. They was making furniture, like chairs, like sofa chairs, different kinds of chairs. And they was making $1 million a month. And what was deep about that is that they had, you know, you get those like signs in the store that go around and advertise stuff. So they had one at the big, where you pack the chairs to send them out. They had this big, like, you know, sign where the amount of money that you made would go like across. And everybody being there working, like trying to get the $1 million. Like, this is wild stuff, man. It's not a story, right? So, and you would be seeing people like pushing, like, make sure we get the $1 million. We get the $1 million. I'm not joking. And, you know, the supervisors would be coming out, you know, cheering the guys on. And Colorado, there was like all a bunch of hillbillies. That's in the middle of nowhere, right? And you like, this is modern day plantation going on right now, right? And they got way more factories than when we was in there. It's because we're talking about, you're talking about 25 years ago, right? They done expanded. They got all these, what they call them places? They had just started them when we was there. But they're like, they're prisons, I forget the name of them, where they got all levels of the federal system in one complex. So you got like a camp, a low, a medium, a USP, like all of them in one area, right? And all of them got their unicorn, right? So that's one place that's doing that $1 million. That doesn't reflect the other institution that's on the same complex. So you may have a USP doing their whatever, their $1 million. You got a FCI doing their $1 million. You got a low doing like these kind of numbers. Bilal, this is above your pay grade. What is a USP? USP is the United States Penitentiary. So they have levels. So USP is the penitentiary. FCI is a medium institution. And then you have a low institution. And then you have a camp. And then above all that, you have ADX. But that's just the system, right? But I was just thinking about this. So we be talking stuff like it ain't going on today. And that's an ongoing enterprise that constantly gets replenished all throughout our communities, all around the country. And we don't realize that people are making billions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars off of our slave labor every year. And while we're not working in our community, that's a trap for the neglected in our communities. And it's been going on for decades, right under our nose. And I say that because we don't see that flip side of all this, right? And for us, when those brothers go in there and sisters, because they got women institutions too, and they embrace Islam, that's their first exposure to Wahhabism in those prisons. Because most of the chaplains that they hire, because they made this thing where they have prison chaplains, and the Federal Bureau of Prisons hire these chaplains that usually come through Saudi-backed institutions of learning, University of Medina. Now they got all these in the United States, all these seminaries, which I call cemeteries of Islamic knowledge. They got a bunch of them all around. And all of these become chaplains to go spread these ideas to our people that come back in our community. That's some deep stuff going on. So even the Islam that would, transform people becomes a source of indoctrination. Like this is a crazy machine when you think about it, right? So just when y'all was talking about all that, my mind went there, right? And that's a life. And many of us don't even realize it. Like that's a whole world that's going on every day, been going on for years. It's growing. And I don't know, at one point, I don't know if they're still doing it, but before I left, they were privatizing institutions. So it used to be just federal, like the government ran it. Then they started sourcing that out to private corporations that were running it. And I remember even the commissary was controlled, and certain people, politicians and companies, was getting all the money from all the commissary. Like there's a controlled multi-million-dollar for everybody off the backs of oppressed people. Some deep stuff to really think about, And then the result, it comes out in our community and we're still combating that. So I think even when we have the discussions about all of these things, we got so many ways to look at the importance of the work we're doing in education and teaching people. And we have a great responsibility, right? From our experiences to really reform our communities, educate our communities, and show them all the pitfalls that unfortunately some of us fell into, but that's not necessarily a bad thing if we use that to build up others so they don't go through the same thing. There's a lot of work. So my mind went there. I don't know, it really doesn't relate to, it does, but I thought about all the people and all these crazy sentences that some people got, because federal life is life. You don't get out of jail, right? That's done. But 20s and 30s and 40s, man, there's so many people with them kind of numbers in there, right? 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, federal years. So you're talking about a guy, he gets 30 years, he's going to do like 27 of those. He ain't coming home no time soon. Like 30 years, 27 years he got to do. He got to do it. He ain't coming home. So for 27 years, they're going to make hundreds of millions of dollars off those at each year. That is crazy. That is the greatest plot you could ever think of. And they did that with the Constitution. Slavery is abolished except for the crown. It's like, That's some like mad scientist stuff. May Allah protect us. So, and where that money goes and where does it end up, Allahu A'lam, you know, the reality of it. It was just something I was thinking about. And a lot of us here watched it firsthand. So we kind of yeah, it's deep stuff. So that was just my thoughts. But some of us realize how much, if you've been through it, you can realize how important it is to get our youth and educate them, because they don't know what's getting ready to happen to them. And the long lasting effects of that stuff, you know, it's deep, you know. I don't know. I'm sorry. My thoughts just went off and I was reliving the past, the glories of the university. May Allah help us.
Yeah.
Now, go ahead.
Now, mashallah, it's relatable because, you know, even now, after we talked about how they use legislation to find a way to curtail, you know, any kind of responsibility towards us, you know, they use legislation for their benefit to keep us down. And, you know, the jail system is just like that. So much so that now it's almost become like a rite of passage for young black men. Almost like
one big thought. And most people don't know, Joe Biden was the one who sponsored the bill to start all this stuff for our people.
In 1994. Yep.
That's a deep thing.
Yep.
People don't even realize that.
Yeah. And so now it's like, you know, it's almost kind of, you know, kids where we come from in these impoverished areas, it's almost like it's expected for them to go to jail, you know. And I remember a time, and you all remember, that the kind of dudes that went to jail was like the kinds that like really belonged there. You know what I mean? Like they were monsters on the street, man. Like I remember dudes growing around my way, and yeah, I remember it was like, you know, you got to come in the house, you know, because such and such he's outside, you know, he's liable to do whatever, you know what I mean? And when they went to jail, the streets were safer, you know what I'm saying? And now it's like everybody's going to jail, and it's almost like to the point now that some of these kids are going to prison and not even realizing the impact that they're going to be in there 20, 30 years because they think it's a game, you know? I remember when I was doing like chaplaincy work, and I went down to Trenton State Prison, you know, and it got, you know, a lot of lifers and stuff in there, man. And so I was talking to one kid, I realized, you know, who he was, you know, and I'm like, you know, I'm in there, I'm like, man, just trying to give him some hope. And so he was like, yeah, man, I can't wait till I get out, man. You know, I can't wait to see you on the streets, you know, so I'm excited. And I'm like, yeah, you know, when you know, we can put you to work, man, you know, come out, check me out. I said, well, when you coming home, bro? He said, I got an L. And I was like, I had to think about it for a minute. Like, what, you know, what made you think you was coming home? L means for life sentence for those who might not know. But, and I was like, well, what made him think, you know, but in his mind, because he was like 29, 30 years old, he got to tell himself that one day there's some hope in it. You know what I mean? Even though the sentence told him, you got a life sentence, you're never coming home. Something had to spark in him, you know, but like, I got to have some hope that I'm getting out of here one day, because if not, I'm going to lose my mind. You know, and a lot of these younger guys, they actually just like putting them on medicine now, you know, putting them on medicine. So, yeah, it relates because, you know, of us losing our organization as a people and our structure and our unity and being commitment to uplifting us, you know, after the civil rights movement passed, you know, then it just started to fall apart a little bit, and just a lot of things became fragmented, you know, and even to now that you have many Black leaders who are scared to speak up and stand out because, you know, it's problematic. You know, you can lose your status. You can potentially get killed. You know, and even now, you know, you can be targeted by other black people, you know, other organizations, you know, that's looking to take you down. So it's a dangerous thing, man. But, you know, for the necessity of our people to be organized and unified and having our thing together, it's a must. You know, it's a must, man. You know. So, yeah, Latif, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help us.
SubhanAllah. Imam Amin got us talking about prison.
It's old prison story about when he was a house
university, not prison, university.
When he was a house colored person.
Yeah, getting $1.50 an hour. Right. Good old days. He was a three-bagger.
He had pine boards in the cell, and all he had to do, it wasn't nothing to call the, you know, the warden, you know what I mean, to get some type of
Hey, I want to tell you a joke, right? Two things. Maybe my brother's listening. He's going to get a kick out of this, right? So we was in one institution, it's Ferriton, right? So they used to make the cords that the jets run off the boat with, that cord and all the circuit boards that go in the radios, all that stuff was made there. So the cables and the circuit boards, they be making all that stuff right in Ferriton, right? So that was the jobs there, right? And then they came up with this refurbishing dirty mattresses. Like, go get the mattress and then redo them and all, right? So my brother was at another institution and he got a transfer to come because we had, from the time that we were separated from the time we got arrested for years, because I was gone. Then when I finally came back and went in that long story. So we finally met up in Ferriton. So I'm working in the office in Ferriton. So we have co-defendants, me and another brother. We was like from my neighborhood. We were co-defendants. We both worked in the office. So my brother comes in, he gets in the unicorn, and he's working in the mattress factory. Right? So during breaks, you know, we would go out on the back. We go.
Hold on, wait a minute. So you was in the house, and he was picking cotton.
He was in a field. Right? So we would come out, you know, you in the office, so you all pressed up, you got your stuff all nice. He come out all the factory, all the stuff. I'm like, oh man, you got oh man, that was so funny. I was sorry, like, he got all this stuff on. I'm like, come on, bro, man, give you this. We used to have some fun, you know. And like, it's the saddest situation, but you know, black folks know how to have fun in every situation. But something that I wanted to say that Imam Faheem mentioned about that. One day we was in that back on the break time, just watching stuff, me and him talking. And I was like, you see that dude over there? You know, was just doing some weird, crazy stuff. I'm like, he's a criminal. He belonging like an animal. And you get to see some people like Imam Faheem, like they belong in jail. They can't be in the streets. And seeing people like that, being around these dudes, they ain't going home, or they got so many years, they might as well not think about going home. And you see like some of this, like where humans become like animals. And I was telling him, I said, man, it's just somebody caring a lot. Some of us wouldn't even be here. Like some of them, they belong there. You got to protect society from them. But there's most of the people, just no one was there, especially African-American youth. Because you remember, all this is stabbing people was like 18, 19, 20, 21. This ain't like old people. These are kids. Tops 25. And they giving all these numbers, you know? And they all got that stuff when they was like 17, 18, 19 years old. They wasn't old, but they gave them 10, 20, 30 years. Teenagers, but no in the cities, you know. So I was just thinking about what you, when you said that, and I was thinking about that picture. And I remember us on the back, and probably me and my brother gonna have this talk in the morning, like just watching dudes and be like, yo, man, we not criminals. That's a criminal, right? We not criminals. That's a criminal. You know, dude inside, like doing crime in a prison. Like, come on, bro. You're robbing people in jail. like he's in the hood somewhere. Catch a dude, come and put the knife to him. Give me that. Robbing people from commissary, like crazy stuff. But this is the environments that they put us in. And, you know, some people are like that.
You ever in the free world drive through some neighborhoods and the way it's laid out remind you of a prison you was in? That's a question.
Say that again.
You ever drive through some neighborhoods, any neighborhood, like say the projects or something like that, and it remind you of a prison that you was in?
Yeah, every time I go to Camden. I'm like, damn, this is impressive. Right now, I'm joking.
Nah,
No, yeah.
Yeah, that's real rap.
So something you go drive through Camden, some places, you'll be like, it's hardcore, right? It will remind you of some compounds for sure. Not every place, but some areas you'll think of a compound. You'd be like,
a lot of people don't realize that because they never been locked up before. But a lot of these neighborhoods and schools, especially the ones in the hood, are like different types of prison compounds. Like in New York, like the projects are real tall and stuff, right? But out here, the so-called projects, they're like 1-2 stories and they kind of spread out. They remind me, a lot of them, of medium correctional facilities in New York, in the state. I'm like, yo, I remember I went through, I drove through one project. I'm like, yo, this remind me of such and such place I was at. It's just like it. SubhanAllah. And people live here like regularly, normally. Whereas I was incarcerated in a place that looked just like this. That's amazing when you think about it.
Yeah, that's a good point. Since we're here, may we ask Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala to relieve the situation of Imam Jamil, because he's in that situation, you know, with poor medical situations. And may Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala relieve him, inshallah, bisir al-Surah al-Fatiha. And you should keep many of those, because he's not the only one. There are so many people in those systems that, you know, that stuff's rough. When they got one for you, yeah, it get bad, you know? This ain't stories like, you know, oh, they exaggerate. No, they not. They ain't even telling the whole story. It get ugly in those places, man. It get real ugly.
And when you get locked up,
unbelievably ugly, you know? Yeah, man, it get real ugly.
A lot of you may not even realize about how many people you forgot about that's in prison. They didn't die. They just disappeared. And you may know or may not know, but if you knew, you forgot. They've been in prison all this time. You know, when I got locked up, I bumped into a whole bunch of people. I heard about them, but they were like older brothers to people that I used to hang with on the streets. And we getting talking like, hold on, wait a minute. You such and such brother? How come I never seen you run away? I've been here. Like, subhanallah, I heard about you but never met you, and now I meet you in here. He's gonna say something, man, Faheem?
No, I just said it. That was.
Yeah.
Wow.
You know, subhanallah, I just looked while y'all was talking. I looked up the movie Life, you know, Eddie Murphy and Martin Lawrence, because I remember the first time I saw that. I was on a plane going to the UK, right? The movie, I couldn't remember what time period it was. It must have been maybe not too long after it came out, because the movie, it says on Google, it says it came out in 1999. So it must have been either 1999, 2000, something like that. But I remember watching the movie. If you know the movie Life, it's a comedy. It's a comedy movie. I remember when the movie went off, I was crying my first time seeing it. Because in my mind, like, I'm watching how the system just, you know, even, yeah, it's a movie, yeah, it's fake, yeah, it's comedy, but we know from our history that this is real for a lot of people. Where you didn't do no crime, or you did such a minor crime that anybody else may have got a ticket for, and you end up spending the rest of your life in prison. And everybody's living their life and it's going right past you, and you in prison, right? And I thought about that. I like, subhanallah, this is sad. And I myself on a plane think like, wow, Allah got me out of that. But I could have easily still been in there for the rest of your life. You know how easy it is to catch another charge in jail? It's very easy. Because like
Real easy.
like Imam Amin was describing, right? It's like it's like a zoo in there. And sometimes some places more zooish, more jungle-ish than others. Sometimes you have no choice but to defend yourself. And that may result in you getting another charge. In other words, you get charged with a brand new crime, even though you're in prison. You might have to kill somebody in there just to protect your life. And you get charged with a murder while you're in prison, then you get life.
You want to hear something? I don't know. We can turn this into university stories from the cell. I remember when I came home, and that movie was already out. I was in Colorado when that movie came out. Con Air, right? So it was on TV. You know, somebody was watching the old movies, and I was like, "That's real." They would say, I said, "No, that's real." I said, "I've been on it." At Con Air, I said, that's diesel therapy in the feds. So it's usually transport, but when they want to punish you, they leave you on that sometime for months, right? And I was just thinking, like the cruise stuff, we on that Con Air joint, and so, you know, they real rough in that. So this guy, he's bucking, you know, because he been on transfer for like 4 or 5 months straight. And what they do is they just take you from institution, county jail, all over the country, just move you nonstop, right? When no one knows where you at, no rights, no mail, no nothing, no just, you just in limbo, right? So this guy, he's on the, you know, because they bring you on the back of the military airplane and put you in the back, and there's all cages in that joint, and right? So the guy, he's bucking against the marshals. So I'm looking at the dude, I'm like, don't do that, right? He keep bucking, they black boxed him. What is black box? They black boxed him. They take a black box, literally, it's like square, and put your hands together like this, and just cut your circulation off. Like, and you can't move. You talking about the pain on this guy's face, excruciating pain, right? And I'm sitting there thinking, because you got to change this, you got a little bit of wiggle room, right? If this thing go down, right, and them planes is like crap, right? You're talking about turbulence. And I'm thinking, Dad, he's just dead. He can't move. So if it go down, he's dead. Even if you go in the water, he's dead. He can't, legs, everything's just, and swollen. And he got to ride wherever they going to drop us off at. I just like, these people, boy, don't mess with the white folks. Like, they do you. And I'm looking at the guy. I was like, told you, don't do that. And you ain't got no reprieve. Ain't nobody to call. Ain't nobody gonna help you. Ain't none of that. We in charge. That's like the ultimate go back to slavery. Think about that.
If you do have family, they don't know where you at.
Right. Ain't none of that. None of that. And guess what? Ain't nobody coming to help you. No laws, no rules, none of that apply to you. It's so when you look at Imam Jamil in those type of situations, yeah, Latif, man. Right? Ain't nobody coming to help you. You don't got no rights. They're gone. You belong to us. And when we look at the stuff we see outside, the fact that that stuff still exists lets you know how it could be overnight. The fact that that's going on every day lets you know how it could really be overnight. That's something that, so when we look at, we read all that history, this stuff ain't in the past. It's still present in a different form. It's not gone. And the worst thing that we could do is actually think this thing has really changed. It hasn't. It hasn't. And may Allah protect us and allow us to use the limited freedom we got for good. And really, because it can, it can change in a minute. In a minute, it become lawless quick. Quick. SubhanAllah.
A lot of people that never experienced it before don't realize it's a whole world. Put it another way, it's a whole ecosystem. Like someone just said, like a shadow, Bilal said, a shadow existence. It's another world operating simultaneously with what you believe is a free world. It's a whole system. It has its own laws, and like Imam Amin said, with no laws. Whoever runs that prison, meaning the warden or the superintendent, whatever title he got, that's his thing to do what he want to do, how he want to do it. It doesn't matter what's on paper or what the policy is or what the state or the federal law is. That's his house. He run it how he want. And like when you see that depicted in movies, that's real. Like when other law enforcement and investigating want to get in the prison to talk to somebody, you see they got to humble themselves. In all those movies, they got to humble themselves because they don't run nothing in there. That's that warden's house. He run it how he want to run it. And, all of these prison systems, the city, state, federal, they all got nightmares. They all got stories and notorious prisons where people done been disappeared and they've been dead for decades. Nobody know where they went. And people thinking it's like Imam Amin said that, oh, they got him on diesel therapy. Like we ain't been able to contact him. No, they killed him. He's dead. And this stuff is happening right here where a lot of y'all think it's sweet at and it's lovely. It ain't like that.
Yeah, y'all done impressed me with this stuff. I can't get no sleep tonight. SubhanAllah. SubhanAllah. All right, where we at, Imams?
I don't know. Do we have any questions?
I'm drained.
Yeah.
Allah.
So for those joining us who've been with us, hopefully you were able to make your suggested donation, inshallah, to help us reach our goal of $500. You know, we try to cover it each week. So if you haven't done that so far, please make sure you do that. So it's a means to help us, and it's a means to double and multiply your reward that goes on your scale, inshallah ta'ala. Okay. Is that a question or a comment? So maybe time's now to promote the event. Maybe this won't be a 3-hour night. Alhamdulillah. Imam Amin, you want to put up the flyer or?
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Both of them?
I only have one.
What about the one for Newark?
Oh, here goes the Newark. No, that's not it. I don't have the Newark one. Newark, January 26th. Let me see. Yeah, I don't know. Let me see. Allahu Akbar. All right, I could do this. This is the best I could do. So that's the Black Imams Roundtable. January 26th is a Sunday from 11 to, what did I say? 11 a.m. to 5 at the Temple of Hip Hop in Newark, New Jersey.
Got the Black Imams going to a temple. See, I told you they was deep.
Told you they was mushricks.
We'll continue in Newark of our explanation of the Aqidah of Imam al-Tahawi, inshallah ta'ala. So that's Sunday, January 26th from 11 to 5 in Newark, New Jersey at the Temple of Hip Hop, 55 Ludlow Street in Newark, New Jersey. So that's the first event. And then in February, we have Malcolm X Legacy in Action, Malcolm X Enduring Relevance. And that's going to be February 21st and 22nd, Friday and Saturday. Friday's from 3 to 7, and Saturday is from 11 to 7. That is an important event, and important in the sense that we want to really take those moments, these opportunities, especially on these historical events, to really see where we at and what we should be doing and what we should learn from what went before us, what's happening now, to prepare for the future. So inshallah ta'ala, we'll put up more about it. I don't know if the register is. And here's for the event. Let me put it up. You can register. Please pre-register. Don't keep doing us like you did us before. That makes a burden when we don't register. So here's the link to register. When you show up without registering, it makes difficulty for us preparing food and counting numbers. We always doubling and tripling what we plan for. So do us a huge, huge solid by registering so that we can do our best to give you a great experience at Masjid Muhammad. So, and we'll have the other flyer up, inshallah, over the next couple of days. And please, from my side, I know I've been missing a lot of the morning classes. Inshallah, I plan on resuming, but with my own situation personal, I'm not as free as I used to be. So I'm not able daily like I would like to at the same time to come on and share classes with you. But inshallah, may Allah facilitate. I'll do as much as I can. So please overlook my shortcomings in the steady classes every morning. May Allah facilitate, inshallah.
Inshallah. Yeah, mashallah. I was just thinking earlier when Imam Naeem was mentioning when they had the UNIA conference in New York, 20,000 people with no internet, no texting, no network, and they arranged 20,000 people. We can at least, if we get 100 people down there, that would be great. We can at least get the 100 people to register, at least. Register. Think about all of the things that go on behind the scenes. And you already know that the community at Masjid Muhammad is very hospitable, welcoming, and it's always feeling like a second home. We go down there. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless those brothers and sisters who are instrumental in making sure that, everything is in place. And it's always a beautiful experience. So make the experience even more lovely by having them having the ability to be better prepared, and come and show up, inshallah ta'ala. So at that event, we get off on talk about Al-Hajj Malik al-Shabazz. So it's going to be very detailed and very informative, inshallah, and just to raise the consciousness about who we are as a people. You often hear Imam Naeem mentioning about we forgot who we are as a people, and we became Muslim. We forgot about our heritage and our legacy, and what came before us. And it's even in the civil rights movement, even if, people who were critical of it and about the nonviolence approach when people were attacking us, it was very monumental in what it achieved for so many people, even Muslims. Like as I mentioned in the presentation, after 1965 is when you start to see more immigrants come over, and more Muslims be able to come freely. Because before, anybody besides Europeans were restricted. They didn't want a lot of us. So, what's that joke that D.L. Hughley said? He said, if you only got one black friend, that's a problem. You know what I mean? I got one black friend. Then if you get two or three, wait a minute. You know what I mean? That's how immigration was. We let a couple y'all come over, but now you're coming over in boatloads. Oh no, it's too many. And how ironic is it that the people who made the laws about immigration were immigrants themselves? That's the big ironic thing. The people who made the laws about restrictions and immigration laws were immigrants themselves, unwelcome immigrants at that, So, but think about all of the work that, the people who came before us, even though they weren't believers, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala instilled in them a sense of perseverance and a sense of resilience and a sense of fighting back against, the structure, the oppression and all of those things that we cannot just let it go by, because we met many Muslims, if you talk to some Muslims, they talk about, MLK Day or stuff like that, or having discussions about it. Oh, they were kuffar and all that. Nah, these are people whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he gives wisdom to whomever he wills, And so these people were instrumental in setting the groundwork for us to be able to do stuff like this, And so we have to appreciate and we have to take a part of what their legacy and carry with us with an Islamic twist on it, And, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala favored us to be believers. We're supposed to be doing double what they've done. They've done a lot, because we have a twofold, goal that for our people and for the believers, so there's a lot of work that we got to do. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for tawfiq.
So there was a question, how do we tie in all what we talked about tonight into the power of organized Black folk? How do we tie it in to organize us into an active work? That was for you, Imam Faheem.
I didn't hear you say my name. You said it was a question. You added my name
It's
at
really
the end.
directed to you. So how do you tie that in to your extraordinary presentation? How does all this tie in and come together?
Well, I mean, at the end of the presentation, I showed you how that we take all that, because one of the beautiful things about Islam is that wherever it went at in the world, you know, it just kind of magnified what was already there. And the only thing that it, you know, really changed is if something that was related to worship other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or idolatry and things like that, you know. But other than that, it magnified. That's why the Muslims were able to connect wherever they went, you know. And so when we're in America, you know, how we tied in is use some of those models and put the Islamic twist on it, you know, unification, dedication, identifying who's with us, you know, having organizations with the same mindset, with the same goals, showing up, being present, you know, giving money, giving time, you know, locking arms, being able to, you know, suffer the harms that we may undergo. You know, everything ain't going to be sweet, you know, being really to deal with the backlash. And a lot of stuff that we're doing now, really, and these times where everything is online and everything's virtual, coming out and being present, you know, exchanging ideas, letting the hearts get together. You know, that's how we do it. And we start, and then look for like-minded people, because a lot of times, you know, we've missed the boat on that part where, you know, a lot of people ain't going to jump on until, you know, they actually see us running all the way. And so those people before us, everybody was on board from the ground. Well, not everybody, but for the most part, when they put it in motion and they did the work, you know, people follow and they were ready, you know. And so when we put that in order, having trusted leadership, you know, verified leadership, and then people who are able to follow and feel like that they are part of something, so they can, you know, contribute with their specialties and their traits. And that's how we do it, you know. And then keep in mind that we are going to stay together no matter what, you know, because we all have the same goal. And as Muslims, we all have the same goal: obeying Allah and obeying His Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you know. And that's going to be the focal point for us to spread out to other people. When they see us, there's a brother that mentioned on here some comments up about, I think he said, Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah march. I don't know. I think that would be kind of dope. You know, we went to a city or one of our cities, and everybody who's Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, we just have a glaring presence, you know, a glaring presence, you know, that we out there, we having a talk, we engage in the people, or just maybe we were talking about this before. Imam Amin was throwing around an idea about a black Jamaat Tabligh, a black Jamaat Tabligh that in our cities, maybe once a month, once weekend a month, all of the brothers, you know, we gather up and we go out for a weekend and giving dawah, and not passing over like, you know, the Jamaat Tabligh does. You know, they'll pass over the non-Muslim and just, you know, sometimes it's like harassment with the Muslim. You know, in the hood they come knocking on your doors and all that. Yo, hold up, man. You know, so we get a group of brothers, 10 brothers. We just going in the neighborhood, we engaging people, we giving out pamphlets. You know, we're going into the areas where, you know, it seems troublesome. And because we're the only ones that can do it. We're the only ones that can really do that. You know what I mean? And so we, you know, those are things. And then we're doing that in each city. You know, then we're having reports about what worked, what didn't work, you know, and then it grows as a national movement in America where the indigenous Muslims are having an impact of dawah because they know it's people that care about them, you know. Something that, you know, you see some of these immigrant Muslims, mashallah, they try to do their best. And even some of them acknowledging the work of the indigenous Muslims who came before them. And even some of the, you know, you'll see now when MLK celebrations, I've seen some Muslims, I've been a part of some of these things myself, you know, and teaching people about the impact of Islam on the civil rights movement, you know, and alhamdulillah in New Jersey, this is actually Muslim Heritage Month in New Jersey. There was a law passed that this is Muslim Heritage Month, you know. And so things like that, when we are organized and we're together and we have one aim, one Allah, one destiny, you know, we're unstoppable. So inshallah, that's how it works.
Imam Naeem, how do you tie in all of these things we talked about tonight and related to the topic, the power of organized Black folk?
Well, we talked about a few things. We talked about historically in the Black community how different organized efforts produce positive results for the people in general. That's what a lot of Imam Faheem's presentation was, and I presented one organization, Marcus Garvey's organization, the UNIA, and then you got us talking about the university, the cell block, and and we also talked about uh, the systemic uh, bad treatment in many different levels that our people, Black people, have had in this country right now and historically. So tying that all together, uh, one point is that these things that we've spoken about, these things will get worse to the degree of our unorganization or disorganization. So, I forgot, it's like a ratio. The more organized we are, the less these things happen. The more organized we are, the less organized we are, the more these things happen. Did I say it right? The more organized we are, the less these things happen, and the less organized we are, the more these things happen. So, in other words, our organization is wajib. It's obligatory upon us because when you're organized, you provide opportunities for your people. And this something I feel like has been floating around, but none of us actually mentioned it directly. A lot, a lot of activity, like in my opinion, I don't know if you all agree with me, but quote unquote gang activity, and I feel like the increase in gang activity is relatable to is in relation to our lack of tribal or family affiliation. Like when I look at all these different type of gangs here in this country, I see tribes in Eastern countries in Africa. We don't have that here. And so I think the gang is a negative result of trying to be affiliated with something, right? And so the tribe is nothing but a huge family. And so when we're not organized, and I'm going back to organization, I don't know, maybe when some of you hear the word organization, maybe you think of nonprofit, maybe in your mind you think of company. When I hear organization, I think of Kaumia, a people. This is what I'm thinking of. Because a lot of times we using the same words, but people may have other things in mind. All right, to my organized. So we need a 501c3, right? No, I ain't talking about that. I'm talking about us seeing ourselves as a people. And you organize based upon that, because that's natural. That's how Allah created us. Like I mentioned the verse in Surah Saf. وَإِذْ قَالَ مُوسَى لِقَوْمِهِ يَا قَوْمِ لِمَ تُؤْذُونَنِي وَقَدْ تَعْلَمُونَ عَنِّي رَسُولُ اللَّهِ إِلَيْكُمْ. When Musa said to his people, "Oh my people," he's talking to his people, Bani Israel, "why do you abuse me when you know that I'm the messenger of Allah sent to you?" So the prophetic way historically has been to every prophet dealing with his own people. The exception is Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who was sent to all people. But even though he was sent to all people, he was sent to his people first. He was sent to his people first, even though he was sent to all people. And so our warped understanding of traditional Islam has gotten us away from that. And I think unless that's a critical component in all of our organizing and dawah activities, it's like we're going to be, trying to take water out of a bathtub with the bath water still running, right? Because that's a problem that creates other problems. And that's why you see Muslims in gangs. You see Muslims doing all types of nefarious things to get money. Oh, Muslims doing all type of stuff because they're looking for something, even if they can't express it. Subconsciously, they're looking for something that they're not getting, that we're not providing. Like at this point, the only thing that the Muslims are providing, whether we agree with them or not, or even including us, whether you're Ahlul Sunnah or not, is theory, dogma. That's the word. That's a better word. Dogma. We know what it is to believe or what we shouldn't believe. And even according to their perspective, what they should believe and what they shouldn't believe, what we should do, what we shouldn't do, how our hearts are supposed to be. But none of that is really being practiced. It's just all theory and people are talking about it. We have to actualize that stuff. We have to be what we're talking about. And that has to be done in an organized fashion. And again, when I say organized, I don't mean company or organized 501c3 nonprofit, for profit. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about us being organized as a people. And just to highlight that point, I want to mention how the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was described, and it's been mentioned in the Shama'il of Imam Tirmidhi, as well as Qadi Iyad Shifa. It is said about him, wa yukrimu karima kulla qawmin wa yuwallihi alayhim, that he, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, honored the nobles, the leaders of every qawm, every people, and appointed them over their own people. I think that's extremely important because around us, the so-called Islamic rhetoric is that this type of stuff is haram. We ain't got no people. You just Islam. You just Muslim. That's your people. But that's not how the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam operated. And he is our example. He honored the leaders of every people, and he didn't say y'all got to stop being the people. Y'all just got to blend into this melting pot of Muslims. No, he appointed the leaders. He appointed the nobles, made them leaders over their own people, and we have to have that same mindset. That's why I said earlier that when we came into what we thought is Ahlus Sunnah wal Jama'ah, or actually Ahlus Sunnah wal Jama'ah, we came in it and we left off being a people and we left off organization, when being a people and being organized is part of Islam. So this is what I get from all of that. And as far as the prison aspect, we're not getting that in prison. We're getting a concentrated dose of the misguidance that we get out here. Like you mentioned, the Wahhabiyya, they're more in control of the jails and the prisons than they were when I was inside. They're more in control now. So you definitely can't be no people and none of that stuff. Nah, all that's kufa bid'ah shirk. You can't do that, right? So the misguidance that we're exposed to on a consistent level out here is concentrated in there. I literally, I'm not exaggerating. When I was living in Philly, I was at Sard's. You know where Sard's at, right? And a brother, he just came home. And so we greeting each other. So I'm like, well, Islam, yeah. He said, I just came home, right? And he asking me what masjids can he go to. And he literally pulled out a paper that had the list of masjids that he can go to. And at Sarge, it's right across the street, right? And so he's like, oh, well, I can't go there. It's not on the list. I'm like, subhanAllah. And I'm just giving you that as a real example because this is what people are getting in prison, a concentrated form of misguidance, division, and all of this stuff that will make us whole. It's embedded in that belief system and that so-called methodology that we don't get that. And so all of that stuff, organization is important. And we need to step up our media outlets, even our print media. We can't depend on electronic. Our print media, just whole lot. I'm sorry, I keep going on. I'm sorry. I hope I answered the question. That's how I tie it all together.
For me, when I think about how it ties in, we got to realize that we need a central point to come together upon. And that central point, which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned in the Quran, وَاتَّصِمُوا بِحَبْلِ اللَّهِ جَمِيعًا وَلَا تَفَرَّقُوا. And hold on to the rope of Allah all together and never separate. We have to identify what we're going to hold on to, and that's Islam and the Quran and the Sunnah of the Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the consensus of this nation, and we have to learn it well. I think this is our biggest problem. We don't know Islam. We have our own ideology and interpretation of Islam that we're trying to implement, which is flawed. So the first thing that I believe, before we can have organized Black folk, they need leadership. And that leadership has to be based in revelation and the proper understanding of revelation. So it needs to be a whole effort of education upon that which we can organize around. We don't put enough emphasis on learning. And learning is essential so that we know what we should be doing in our organizational efforts, in our organized efforts. And that, to me, is very important. So before we can organize, we have to understand the thing that's going to help us organize. That's the deen. What is Islam? And what are the various sciences that we need to learn in order that our life would be in accordance with Islam, with revelation? That's extremely important. Too many of us are ignorant of the sciences and the aspects of the religion. We're just going through the motions. This is a killer. There's going to be no organized effort upon ignorance of the matters of the religion. It's never going to work. And that's going to start individual by individual in stages. We want to, like this grand movement, we all, step by step. Each one, teach one. That's how we're going to have to go about it. Till you build individuals who understand the thing that's going to bring about the changes we want to see. They have to understand Islam. And that's an inward, real conviction. One of my favorite verses in the Quran, and I try to live by it, at least at the mind level, and I try to push my body to follow it. Right? It's in Surah Hujurat, the 15th verse. Allah said, إِنَّمَا الْمُؤْمِنُونَ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا بِاللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ ثُمَّ لَمْ يَرْتَابُوا وَجَاهَدُوا بِأَمْوَالِهِمْ وَأَنفُسِهِمْ فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ أُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الصَّادِقُونَ. Allah mentioned the real believers. In other words, the only true believers, the complete believers. What do they believe in? They believe in Islam. They're believers. You don't believe in Islam, you're not a believer, right? And that's something we need to understand. Like, no, the believer, the mu'min, is a Muslim who believes in al-Islam. And our teachers used to say, Islam is the truth and everything other than it is false. Many of us don't have that conviction. We actually think that something other than Islam is going to save us. And that is a big mistake. All we have is Islam. We don't have anything else. So we must learn it and utilize it to navigate every obstacle we're faced with. So we got to become real believers. So that is to believe in Allah and His Messenger, and thereafter never doubt. So Allah said, ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابُ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ. This is the book, there's no doubt in it. Allah mentioned, أَفِي اللَّهِ الشَّكْ. There is no doubt about Allah. Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Muhammad is the messenger of Allah. Inna ad-deena inda Allahi al-Islam. The deen of Allah is Islam. That's the way. That's it. And that has to be a deep-rooted, unshakable conviction in our hearts. Many of us are missing this point. And that's the first thing that's mentioned before anything else. Where's your conviction? Where's your surrender? Where's your submission? That's first. Then, after we got that part together, and that's working on Iman. That's why they corrupt Aqidah, you know. If you can corrupt the Aqidah, you can't do nothing else. If your Aqidah is warped, your tenets of faith, your belief is all confused and muddy waters, you don't know the difference between Iman and Kufr, Sunnah and Bid'ah, Tawheed and Shirk, you don't know the difference, everything else is shot. You can't, no matter whatever you do, it don't matter. Because the asl, the foundation is destroyed. Right? That's what Imam al-Ghazali said when he said that the worship is not valid until you know the one you're worshiping. And I think we like, oh, it's all semantics. Nah. I was in the house this morning and something was on the TV and my wife said, turn that off. They got two husbands. I said, what the heck is that? She said, I said, two husbands? Like, what's wrong? No, she said, no, there's two men that are raising kids. They're in a relationship. I said, dang, just on a TV show for kids. Right? That's Aqidah. My sheikh, he sent me today, one of my sheikhs, he sent me that the Pope, he said that this gender identity stuff is more dangerous than nuclear weapons. I said, deep. That's an Aqidah, that's a belief. He said this gender identity is more dangerous than nuclear weapons. Like, think about that. And the Pope be trying to be a nice guy, right? He, got to play politics. But he recognized that certain things can disrupt the whole fitrah of the human being. Besides the kufr they're on, that's even something else that's sliding in. And it's in the schools, it's in the systems, and it's in all of our institutions. These are real things that you're going to be challenged with. And all that's opposed to Islam. And then you'll get to the point where you start compromising the deen because of the environment and the different creeds and belief systems that are being pushed on you. You start to figure a way to, say everybody has a right to do what they want. But it's not right to do whatever you want. Even if you have the so-called freedom, that's not right. So that part, in every aspect of our life, what is the rule? What is the methodology in Islam that we do that? And that's only going to be understood through knowing the sacred law and knowing what Islam comes for. And essentially, that can be broken down to two things: ensuring benefit and removing harm. And now how do we navigate that in real time? And that's what we have to organize around. That's from one side. Once we understand that at the heart level and then the intellectual level, because it needs to be a conviction. Because if it's just intellectual, something you have in your mind, you ain't going to act upon that. When it's a deep-seated heart conviction and understood by the mind and the intellect, now you're ready for action. So what does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say? After that, وَجَاهَدُوا بِأَمْوَالِهِمْ وَأَنفُسِهِمْ. And this part, for us, a big problem. Then Allah said, and they struggle with their wealth and themselves. We stingy. We want to organize, but no organized effort will go anywhere without support. And that was one of the things Al-Hajj Malik Shabazz, Malcolm X, stressed before he died. That they used to call their fundraising efforts freedom dollars. You remember that, Imam Naeem? He said, we raising money. He said, these are freedom dollars. That was Malcolm X. We want to move without money. It ain't going to happen, especially in the wilderness of North America. It's not going to happen. This idea that we don't want to sacrifice with our money because we're so individualistic, until you satisfy my nafs, I'm not helping. Whoa, nafus going wild. My desires must be taken care of before I even help an organized effort. That effort ain't going nowhere. And that's why Allah mentioned that first. They struggle because you got to struggle against your nafs to give up your money. But no effort is going anywhere without money. It never went nowhere. The Prophet ﷺ used to, whenever he wanted to make a move, he would call for the money. He would call for the resources. And when he spoke highly of Sayyidina Abu Bakr and he spoke highly of Khadijah, he talked about how they supported him with their wealth. It wasn't just talk. It wasn't pom-poms. Nah, it was resources. Those who had material resources, they gave it without hesitation. That's something we need to think about. Because if we especially as black people, black folk, listen, people are spending hundreds of millions of dollars to keep us oppressed. And if we're not willing to spend not even thousands of dollars to gain our freedom, as Malcolm called it, freedom dollars, we don't stand a chance. Yeah, it sounds good, but where is the dough that's supporting that idea, right? Where is the resources that you saying all this, but you can't move. You can't do anything. So Allah said, وَجَاهَدُوا بِأَمْوَالِهِمْ. And the famous story that we all love to hear about but not do. You know, the Prophet ﷺ called for the money. And Sayyidina Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he came to the Prophet ﷺ. He said, I bring half my wealth. And he was like, yes, half my wealth. Then Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala anhu came. And he brought all of his wealth. And the Prophet ﷺ said to Abu Bakr, Ya Abu Bakr, what did you leave for your family? He said, I left from Allah and his messenger, and that's sufficient. How many of us are cut anywhere near that? Think about it. We ain't even cut at the Umar level, radiallahu ta'ala anhu. Even in our thinking, half my wealth. We don't even, that's a crime to us, some of us, to think about giving for an effort half your wealth. But Abu Bakr came with all of it. But you notice something? You don't never read about Abu Bakr really being poor. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Al-Ghani and Al-Mughni. He will keep giving because he has the treasures of the heavens and earth. It don't stop. But because we don't have Iman, that's difficult. He was a Siddiq. He had real Iman. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he knew the promise of Allah is true. He ain't worried about that. Here you go, Sayyidi Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. What else you need? And he gave his wealth. Not only that, he gave of himself too. He was on that battlefield. He was with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam when he made hijrah, putting his life on the line. He was there. To Allah praised him in the Quran as the companion of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That was his rank of sacrifice. Where we at with that? If we really want to be organized and we really want to move, these concepts got to be part and parcel of our movement. You got to have people who will give everything for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But the problem is we don't understand the deen enough to even believe we're sacrificing for the deen. We're saying, man, I ain't sacrificing for that Negro. You don't even see Islam. You just see Negroes. Right? That's your mindset. I'm not letting him come up on my back. Yeah, you want to nobody come up on your back. That's why we ain't coming up. No one's coming up on your back. But when you understand Islam, you start seeing that we're planting seeds for when we're long gone. Right? That's something when we're gone, that's still going on. You got to have that mindset. And that's something we have to train ourselves. Not only your wealth, because we clinging to that. Right? We're clinging. We got to let that go. Stop acting like you earn the money. You don't. Allah give you the money. And the one who gave it to you when you couldn't earn it, the one who gave it to you when you thought you were earning it, is the same one that will give you more when you give it away for his sake. This is very important. I want to share one of the great mujtahidun scholars. I'm sorry to go long on this, but I want to tie it all in. There was a great scholar from Egypt who lived during the time of Imam Malik. His name was Al-Imam Layth ibn Sa'ad. He was from Egypt. He was one of the great mujtahid imams. They used to say about him, just to punch on the Malikis, they said, Layth afqahu min Malik. That Layth was more knowledgeable in fiqh than Imam Malik. Take that, Imam Naeem. Right? May Allah have mercy and raise the ranks of that great Imam, the scholar of Medina and the scholar of Egypt, Imam Malik and Imam Layth. But Imam Layth never paid the obligatory zakat, as Al-Hafiz Ibn Hajar Al-Asqalani radiyallahu ta'ala and wrote about him. He said he never paid the obligatory zakat, and he was filthy rich. He paid for all the students. He paid for he never paid the obligatory zakat. And it was mentioned why he did that. Because he never had the nisab, that minimum amount, for 1 year. Because every time he get money, he gave it away. And Allah would give him more money and more money. So he never had the same money for 1 year in order to pay zakat. Because he would give it away. And he never was listed as, he was extremely wealthy. We need that kind of mindset. That was the mindset of Sayyidina Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala anhu. That was the mindset of Khadija radiallahu ta'ala anha. That's that mindset of Layth ibn Sa'ad that we got to get back. Where, listen, man, my wealth, my life, my death, my sacrifice is all for Allah. We have to have that mind, right? And then find an organized effort that we truly believe in and support it and work for it And that's what we're doing here. So we don't got to look elsewhere. We're doing it every week for years, every so many months. And it's depending on your support. If we had your support at the level we needed, we would be doing it every month, every week, daily. We would be working. But you only work to the capacity of the sacrifice. You can't do any more, no matter how much you want to do. You only can work to the degree of the sacrifice. So we got to say, all of us, how much am I willing to sacrifice? How much do I truly believe in a mission? Not just talking, not just cheerleading. How much do I really believe? And if we can't find an effort of Black Muslims that we believe in, that we trust, that we support that work, we really fooling ourselves. You don't find no one you can sacrifice for? No one at all? Which speaks more about ourselves than the ones we don't want to support. So we believe that we just ruined. And the Prophet ﷺ said that whoever says the people have been ruined is the most ruined of them all. That is always good in this ummah. There's always good among our people. You got to find that good person. You got to find that organized effort that you really believe in. And you got to commit. You got to give it up. Not just your money, but yourself too. What am I needed to do? Here's my money's a given. Now what else do I need to do? And that's when we start realizing our skill sets. And when your skill set is not needed, don't take the ball and run. Find somewhere else to fit in. Because sometimes we got our own ideas, but we don't know how to implement those ideas. And then we'll do stuff that undermine the whole organized effort because we want to do what we want to do, not what's needed to be done. And we find this in the masjids all the time. I'm only going to help when you do what I want you to do. Yeah, but what you want me to do ain't the best thing we need to do for the collective right now. It's something else. I need your support here. That doesn't negate what you're saying has importance. It's just not the priority right now. And Imam Siraj, may Allah have mercy on him, he said one time at the African American Islamic Summit that we have here in Atlantic City, he said, and it was so profound, I don't know if y'all remember this. Remember he said, if you can't see the vision, trust the visionary. Y'all remember that statement? Imam Siraj? He said, if you cannot see the vision, trust the visionary. That's important. You got to learn to trust somebody. You got to learn to believe that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has guided the other. And maybe it's not you. And that's fine. That doesn't mean you don't have a role. I was watching someone trying to do something they can't do. I was thinking to myself, I said, man, you have other skills. That ain't it. Right? Like, come on, stop. You messing it up. You're making us look bad doing that. Don't do that. You talking about 3, 4, 5, 3. That's not 3, 4, 5, 3. That's you. It's not 3, 4, 5, 3. That's you. It's a horrible rendition of 3, 4, 5, 3. It's not 3, 4, 5, 3. Trust me. If no one else will tell you, I'm gonna tell you that's not 3, 4, 5, 3. Not at all. I don't what numbers you got going on. That ain't 3, 4, 5, 3. But you got other skills. Why don't you ask someone where can you best fit in instead of trying to do it yourself? Why don't you trust someone who sees things that you may not see and say, listen, man, where can I fit in? Here, do this. And do that excellently. We have to learn to follow. And we have to be willing to follow. We have to be willing to surrender to authority. Not this idea that there is no authority but my nafs. That's the authority. And we have to get out of this mindset of not me. You know, they got the Me Too movement. We got the not me movement. Let someone else do it. No, you do it. The other day we came to the Masjid for class. There was trash outside. And y'all know our Masjid, it runs a whole block. It's just trash. And no one come to pick up that trash. So some brothers walk in. As soon as they go through the door, they come in the Masjid, I give them broom and shovel. They looking at me like, I'm like, here, go get the trash. Go get the trash. It's not just about knowledge. We got to do work too. Go get the trash. And in our minds, we get this concept that I don't have to work. I just have to enjoy the work, the fruits of other people's work. No, you got to work. And if all of us have in our mind, I'm willing to sacrifice with my wealth and myself, the organized efforts will go far. That's the key. Sacrifice. Put yourself in the level of service to a mission that you truly believe in. And if you don't have a mission you believe in, you know, you need to really reevaluate your understanding of Islam. You don't have nothing to cling on to, nothing. Only your desires, only what makes you comfortable. That's it. That's your whole life. How can I be comfortable? Subhanallah. You don't understand Islam at all. A man came to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He said, Ya Rasulullah, I love you. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, prepare yourself for poverty. Wow. I love you. Okay, prepare yourself for poverty. And poverty doesn't always mean the lack of money. Real poverty is ultimate surrendering to Allah. We are fuqara ilallah. We are impoverished to Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala. And Allah, huwa al-ghaniyul hamid. He is the one who is free of need and worthy of praise. Real poverty, when you really break yourself for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and for the da'wah of Islam. And each and every one of us need to start pushing ourselves in that regard. It's not about you. It's not about me. It's about al-Islam. And our whole life should be to make the deen of Islam over every other way of life. As Allah told us, هو الذي أرسل رسوله بالهدى ودين الحق ليظهره على دين كله. That He's the one who sent His messenger with guidance and the religion of truth, so that it will prevail over every other way of life. That's Islam. That's how the power of an organized Black folk, because we know what it is to struggle. We've been struggling on our whole journey in North America. So we know struggle. Imagine when we struggle under the banner of La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. and we take that da'wah with our wealth and with ourselves in the path of Allah, we take that to our people, build them up, and then challenge the world. It's doable, especially when we do it for the sake of Allah. And we wouldn't be the first of people who, by way of them, Allah reformed and revived Islam in a society. It can happen. And it can happen at our hands when we are committed and we surrender. And we put Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and Islam before us. And that's a huge call, I know, because we've been taught, and especially in this society, it's about us. It's about Islam. And you have to be in Islam with no you. That's the reality. May Allah make it easy. So to me, that's how we tie it all together. That's my thoughts, and I'm sticking with it. And I hope that we live like that. That's our life. That each and every one of us, ain't nothing more important to me than this deen. Nothing. And I'm not talking about just the name. I'm talking about the actual sacrifice for this deen. Nothing is more important than that. Not my job, not my family, not even myself. Nothing is more important than this deen. And all of that has its part of the deen. But the whole of the deen will come before that. That was the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That was him. If you think of Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha, she said that there would be a whole month and a fire was not lit in the house of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Look what kind of women they were. She said, it's a whole month, there's no fire. We ain't no cooked food, period. That's how they was living with the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Khairul khalqillah, the best of the creation of Allah. They were people of sacrifice. And what was that sacrifice? Fi sabilillah. For the sake of Allah. That's it. Now, as soon as you're a little bit uncomfortable, you ready to quit. I can't be comfortable. My desires is being trampled upon. You ready to give up, throw in the towel. It's a cult. It's a cult because you got to sacrifice. It's automatically a cult. Solely because you have to sacrifice. I ain't joining no cult. I know. Anything that's against your nafs is a cult. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. Your nafs is a cult. That's a cult. That's the cult you need to get out of. The cult of nufus. May Allah help us and give us some understanding. And by way of him, that's all easy. Tell you, that was my long spiel. That's what I believe. The organized, that is power when we get that understanding, inshallah. Okay, Imam, I'm done.
Imam, you do know we don't have to go 3 hours every week, right? I think you was
we would be
reaching
going against our sunnah, and we won't sacrifice our nufus to go early. Struggle. Jahid to shahid, ya habibi.
Yes, sooner is brevity in speech too. Alhamdulillah, I know, appreciate you, man. How we look on that loaf, man? Anything?
I would never know that. We go over that every week. We need more sacrifice and more help and more staff.
I ask you the same question every week.
Yeah. And it's the same answer. Not enough.
My friend, you ask me the same question every week, Papa.
I'm on the third floor, Papa. I don't know. This is my mind. I'm on third floor. I don't know.
I live right here.
I minding my business, Papi. I minding my business.
So who's going to close us out? Imam Naeem is going to close us out like corner store style?
Yeah, because he didn't want to sacrifice till the corner store is closed. Didn't want to spend his money. Didn't want to do his help. No, the corner store.
You know, Imam Amin, when you were talking, you reminded me of an article I read from this book right here. This book right here is called American Jihad, Islam After Malcolm X by Stephen Barboza. I had this book for a minute. I got it in 1996. And there's one article in there called Go Buy Fish. And it's about this brother named H. Nasif Mahmoud. And he went through the Nation of Islam. He's an attorney. Right? What's so funny, man? Why are you laughing?
Because I got all these crazy experiences in my life, and everything, some of y'all say something and something come to my mind, I'll tell you, it just cracks up.
Man, you done triggered him.
I'm young in years, but I know about sacrifice. So I've seen all I'm talking about, I've lived it. So I got to share a story after that. Now you just extended it.
Oh, no.
So it's going to be short, but funny.
So this person was, when he was in the nation, he was in law school. And so in his mind, he figured that he's down with the nation. He got in his mind that he's trying to do something good for his people. A lot of our people are getting locked up. So I'm going to specialize in criminal law. Elijah Muhammad told him, no, don't do that. You need international law. Do that. So he followed his leader and he went to international law. He was the one that was responsible from the legal perspective of putting together that fish deal. You know how the Nation of Islam used to sell a fish, whiting, coming out of Peru. That was him. He was representing the Nation of Islam on a legal side. The Nation of Islam had a bank. He's the one who was representing the Nation of Islam when the Nation of Islam purchased a bank, right? The reason why I mentioned that is because Imam Amin was talking about, when he was talking about whoever he was talking about doing, represent 3453, right? You just doing their own thing, right? This person could have did his own thing, right? But when you part of an organized body, you don't move like that. And so his logic told him criminal law. And his organization, the head was Elijah Muhammad. Elijah Muhammad said, no, you go into international law. And he heard and obeyed. He went into international law. And the Nation of Islam got a lot of benefit after that, because of that. Another thing that happened with him, out of everything in this book, this is the one article that sticks to me because of these points right here. And you triggered me when you mentioned it. So we both get triggered, right? So since he was in the law in school, the regular NOI person, the regular, fruit of Islam, thought that, he was a square. Like he wasn't training with the fruit. So they thought that, a lot of y'all don't know, in circles like that, when you got, like security and like the fruit of Islam, those are like the tough guys in the community. And a lot of times, in a lot of those organizations also, there's also like a subtle rift between the so-called security and the so-called imam, right? So a lot of times it's like, oh, dudes, they just, ignorant brutes. They don't, they only know how to fight. They don't know how to think. And they be like, those guys, they just nerds, they eggheads, but they can't defend the deen, right? So it's just like this subtle antagonism between the two. But that existed in the Nation of Islam too. And so he tells a story about how nobody knew that he knew martial arts. But he wasn't doing everything that the fruit was doing. So, when you do martial arts, there's always like what I call a crash test dummy. The instructor, he calls someone and he beats him up for the whole session, right? right? So they tried to do that to him. Well, a lot of times when people are jealous of you, they use that martial arts training section. They use you to demonstrate. They just use that's their opportunity to whoop on you, to beat you up, right? So they thought they was going to do that to him, right? And he ended up whooping the instructor because none of them knew he knew martial arts, right? And so that's all I wanted to say. When you was talking, you reminded me of this article, and I couldn't remember the brother's name, so I went and found the book and found the article.
So what made me laugh is old Ansar. So we didn't go to the university, we're going to the Ansar days, right? So, so you would know this, Imam Naeem, so because so this guy, I don't know, he was some, in corporate America in San Diego, California. So he was, learning about the Ansars, sewing the white, and this is, this is early in the 80s, right? So he's seeing the white, and he comes to New York, he goes to the Sunday class and hearing the lectures, go eat some pizza in the restaurant, go to the bookstore, he's feeling the movement, right? It's organized Black folk, right? So he muscles, every day, so when you go to those classes, everything looks beautiful. You know how it all looks. So, they tell him you should move in the Ansars. You can't be out there, with the devil, with the kuffar. You need to move in and join and raise the 144,000 and, mothership is coming, all that stuff, right? So when you first come into mosque, they have like 90 days of like Shabbat training is like where you're a new guy, they showing you the ropes, right? So that guy, he comes and he first comes to the mosque, they goes to the, comes to the class and he's moving in the mosque, right? So he comes in our building and the bottom, like his brothers up top that's already there and the Shabbat people on a lower level, right? So he comes in, he got all his stuff like he's moving or something. Hey, yo, you don't need all that. And that car, you can't have that car. You got to get rid of all that stuff. You got a garb, and here's your crates. Here's your thing on the floor, and that's where you sleep. Oh, this is hilarious. So he comes in, and they put him down. So how it's set up. So in the building, you may say, like in Brooklyn, so you may have 4 floors or 3 floors. My brain is, I think 4 floors, right? Them brownstones, right? And in each room, because all of them is rooms, it's brothers in all those rooms. So each room maybe have between 4 to 6, maybe even 8 brothers in one room. So you got the room. So everybody's on the floor, and they nail stuff up to put their garbs because you don't have no property. Couple garbs, hanging on the walls, and that's your little area, right? So he comes in there, and he's like, "So where I'm asleep over there in that corner." He puts his stuff down. He's like, "Where my bed? There ain't no beds in here, brother. We soldiers, we Ansar Rangers."
Hey, y'all was hamsters. The hamsters be in a cage in their corner.
Right? This is day one. So then he's you can see in his face he's ready to leave. Day one. It's like he got his face. It's like, I gotta get out of here. This is crazy, right? So we talking to him because we can see, like, dude getting ready to leave. He can't handle this. Right? So we're like, yo, we trying to show, we got a soldier, we got to sacrifice. He makes it through the night. Then the morning comes, before Fajr, the rover comes in and he's screaming and hollering, get up, you bums, get up, it's time for Fajr. This guy gets up, he's looking like, what the heck is this? Come on, man, you gotta hurry up, we gotta go down, we gotta get to the masjid, right? So we go to the mosque, then we come back, he think he gonna get some sleep. Like, nah, we gotta go training. He said, what do you mean training? We gotta go do that martial arts stuff you was talking about, you know what I mean? We gotta go training. He's going out, he go to training. He gets back, he's like, all right, now you got 3 minutes to take a cold shower. 3 minutes. And like you gotta get in and out. He gets out. Now we all gotta go partners when we go pedaling. So you take that 3-minute shower, then you gotta go out pedaling. So everybody got partners. That night we come back and his partner like, yo, where the brother at? He said he's not coming back anymore. One night of realizing what sacrifice looked like there, he ain't make it one night. He was out of there. He went out. And so I was laughing when you started talking about this guy, the whole picture, the whole face came to my mind and just, oh man, that's the Ansar days. So what the sacrifices we're asked to make is light to what people have made in terms of building all what we're talking about. You know what I'm saying? Like what people have sacrificed in our communities to try to build, what we're asked to do is light, nothing. Like, you know, you stand comfortably home, give a little money, come help out a little bit. You ain't really got to do anything. You know what I mean? And our building our institutions and our organizations in the Black Muslim community, even with deviant ideas, there was real sacrifice. You know, real. You got to put your life on the line. You got to put it all on the line. Ain't nobody asking you to do that. You're doing little stuff and you finding that difficulty. You're finding difficulty in little stuff. This does not even really pressure on you. We really got to question ourselves. I'm sorry, that story, I don't tell it the way I saw it. It just was hilarious to me, thinking back on it. It wasn't funny to him, but we were cracking up, you know, because in there you learn to become a soldier. And when I think about what we have to do now is nothing to what we've done in our, you know, what we did for trying to build our people. This is easy stuff. And for us, we act like it's hard. You ain't even got to do anything, right? To what people have done. Even in the nation, even in the, you know, with the Marcus Garvey movement, all those movements, Dar Islam, all the movements of Black folk, the sacrifice that Black folk did, we ain't asked to do that now. So the little stuff we got to do, man, it should be an honor. And say alhamdulillah that Allah don't make it so hard on us to sacrifice to build. That was all. And Imam Faheem left us. He said this is going to be to midnight if y'all guys keep going on. Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah.
So you go in the store, Imam?
I guess so.
So everybody know it's easy. You don't really got to do a lot of sacrificing. Somebody asks you, put up a little bit of money, come to a class here and there, share a video, like a video. You ain't asked to sacrifice. And you can't do that. You should really question your level of Iman, seriously. Like you don't have to do nothing. It's easy. And you get to sleep in that comfortable bed you got.
Not on the crate.
Yeah, with the rats running over top of you and the stuff falling on your head.
Brooklyn rats.
Brooklyn rats. Joints look like dogs. Allahu Akbar. You know what a guy used to say, one of the imams in there, let me shoot him out, my brother Khalil, I call him Little Chief. He used to say, we're all going to laugh at this one day. Right? And here I'm cracking up, right? But it wasn't funny when you're in it. We laugh sometimes, but it's in the struggle. He said, we're all going to laugh at this one day. And alhamdulillah, he's right in that because we're getting to laugh. No, sure.
What was the brother's name? I have a problem remembering his name. The brother who, after the Ansars, he started Madrasa to Islamiyah in Brooklyn. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, so I noticed somebody was just telling me about them. I don't know his name, but I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, tall, light-skinned brother.
Yeah, I don't know his name.
I don't even know if he's still alive or not.
But I think they still got that school. I think they're in Long Island somewhere.
Oh, they moved from Brooklyn?
I don't know. I think that's where they're, Long Island or Staten Island, one of them. I think they're struggling, but they still have the school.
Okay. I wanted to know if you knew him because his origin is in the Ansar.
Yeah. I'll tell you offline who I believe that's all connected to.
Oh, okay.
We came through a lot of stuff. Amazing, all the experiences we have. Some of us know how to sacrifice and we've fallen short because we've been through those movements where we had to sacrifice. And a lot of times, because we've been let down, we lost hope. And one thing I'm thankful that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala didn't strip with when you go through, these movements, you didn't lose your hope. That, you still have the hope to really build our people. Because that shaitan that when you see struggle and it go wrong, you quit. You should just find the right way, not quit.
Yeah.
All right, Imam. This has been a long night. Let us close it out.
Alhamdulillah. We close out in honor of Imam Faheem, who started us along this path, but abandoned us when the struggle got real and we got close to the 3-hour mark. Alhamdulillah. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت واستغفرك وأتوب إليك والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless all of you and bless you with a good night. And we hope to see you soon, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.